Chapter 7. Jia Ji walked in front of Hua Tian and handed over the cold blade to Nianbing. Then I won't thank you. However, shouldn't you give us a scabbard? Hua Tian reluctantly looked at the blade and turned back into the house. After a while, he took out a rusty blade sheath and threw it to Nianbing. This blade sheath is made of cold iron. After my special processing, it is compatible with the cold blade. When the blade enters the scabbard, it won't touch the body of the scabbard and can even cover the chill of the blade itself. This time I really suffered a big loss. Nianbing put the cold blade back into the scabbard. Sure enough, the blue radiance disappeared, and even the chill disappeared. Only the ice goddess stone on the hilt still emitted a faint blue light. Looking at the blade in her hand, Nianbing respectfully bowed to Hua Tian. Senior, thank you for giving me this blade. Senior, this blade is inlaid with a gem, so it is different from before. Please give it a name. Hua Tian's eyes revealed a hazy light, autumn water white dew, freezing the world. Let's call it Morning Dew Blade. Jia Ji praised. Morning Dew, what a good name. Nianbing held the Morning Dew tightly and secretly called out in her heart, Mother, you gave me the ice goddess stone inlaid on this blade. Will you blame me? I still remember your sigh of unwillingness when you left. This blade also uses the ice goddess stone as its soul, so let's call it Sigh of the Ice Goddess. Sigh of the Ice Goddess, Morning Dew Blade. A peerless divine blade appeared just like that. Hua Tian looked at Jia Ji and said, I'm tired. You guys go. Just now, the blade light soared into the sky. I'm afraid it has already been noticed by the martial artists. Be careful when you go back. Kitchen knife, what a pity. It's actually a kitchen knife. Damn it. Cursing out the dissatisfaction in his heart, Hua Tian staggered back to his little black house. Jia Ji held Nianbing's small hand and said, Little broken blade is right. Let's go quickly. It's best if we don't get noticed by others. You're really lucky. While doing this, he tore a piece of cloth from his clothes and wrapped it around the hilt of his saber, covering the brilliance of the stone of ice snow goddess. He then put the saber into Nianbing's arms and pulled her away in a hurry. Most of the people in Ice Snow City had already fallen asleep. The streets were somewhat deserted. As they walked, Nianbing asked Jia Ji in a low voice, Master, is that Senior Hua Tian a martial artist? Jia Ji smiled faintly and said, You can say so, but you can also say no. Although he practiced Do Chi, he didn't know any martial skills. With the level of his 9-leaf Do Chi, he should have already surpassed the great sword master level among martial artists. He might even have entered the realm of martial combat master. However, he doesn't know any martial arts technique. His 9 abandonment Do Chi is completely for the sake of refining weapons. As you can see, as a fire attribute Do Chi of the highest quality, what else is more suitable for refining weapons? Master, can't we use Do Chi to cook? Do Chi can also have various attributes. Nianbing asked the question in her heart. Jia Ji shook his head and said, That won't do. Do Chi is too tyrannical and focuses on explosiveness. On the other hand, magic can be used as one pleases. Don't say any more. Let's go back to the inn first. Tomorrow morning, we will return to the Peach Blossom Forest. Before we return, you must not let the Morning Dew saber leave its sheath. If someone covets it, we won't be able to keep this treasure. When they returned to the inn, it was already late at night. Jia Ji had walked for a whole day and was already tired. After sending Nianbing back to her room, he went to the next room to rest. Although Nianbing was also tired, she had just obtained a new treasure. With a youthful temperament, she didn't feel sleepy at all. She took out the Morning Dew saber from her bosom and played with it repeatedly. If it wasn't for Jia Ji's reminder, she would definitely have pulled the saber out of its sheath and looked at the blue light again. The sound of snoring next door was faintly discernible. Clearly, Jia Ji had already fallen asleep. Nianbing stuck out her tongue and muttered to herself, Luckily I got 2 rooms. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. The power of Master's snoring is really great. Hugging the sigh of the snow goddess, Nian Bing slowly closed her eyes and began her daily routine, meditation. After a while, she had already entered a meditative state. Under the guidance of her spiritual force, the fire and ice elements slowly condensed in Nian Bing's body. She was really tired today. Add to that the excitement of obtaining the morning dew saber, she had forgotten that the ice and fire elements were currently in an unbalanced state. She didn't have much control over them, so the magic elements naturally condensed in her body. As usual, the stone of the snow goddess and the stone of the god of fire increased the speed at which Nian Bing condensed the magic elements. It didn't take long for her to completely recover the magic she had used up during the day. However, at this moment, the ice and fire elements were in a delicate state. For more than a year, Nian Bing had been continuously cultivating with the help of the two highest quality gems, causing her magic to accumulate to a certain extent. The accumulation of quantity would inevitably lead to a qualitative change. If it was an ordinary magician, continuing to cultivate, their magic would be able to break through the bottleneck and reach a higher realm. However, Nian Bing was different. She had two completely opposite elements of magic. Although she had reached the bottleneck at this moment, a special change had occurred. After the ice and fire elements had filled half of her body, in order to obtain more space, they began the process of pouring into each other. The ice magic followed the meridians and attacked from left to right, while the fire magic followed the meridians and attacked from right to left. As the two types of magic attacked each other, an obvious change occurred in Nian Bing's body. With the center of her body as the dividing line, the left half of her body turned completely blue, while the right half of her body turned completely red. For a moment, the red and blue radiance constantly fluctuated, the struggle becoming more and more intense. From extreme cold to extreme heat, the intense stimulation caused Nian Bing, who was originally meditating, to wake up from her meditation. When her mind was clear, Nian Bing immediately discovered that something was wrong with her body. At this moment, whether it was the ice magic or the fire magic, both had reached an unprecedented state of berserk. The two types of magic were pouring into each other, neither giving way to the other. The stone of the ice goddess and the stone of the fire goddess emitted a faint light at the same time, injecting the magic contained within their own bodies into Nian Bing's body, as if they wanted to assist the magic of the same origin to suppress the other. Ice and fire alternated, the piercing pain Nian Bing's body unceasingly convulsed. However, at this moment, the situation was already out of her control. Even if she wanted to cry out in pain, she couldn't even open her mouth. She could only watch helplessly as her body turned blue and red, constantly changing under the mutual attack of the magic. As the two types of magic became more and more berserk, the left side of Nian Bing's body was already covered with a layer of frost, while the right side of her body was burning hot. The clothes on her body were already emitting a faint burnt smell. Under the impact of these two types of magic, Nian Bing's consciousness gradually became somewhat blurred. She thought of her father, thought of her mother, thought of everything that had happened at the Ice God Tower. Mom, Dad, am I going to die? Am I going to die? No, Bing doesn't want to die. Dad, didn't you once say that ice and fire are not completely opposite? Why do I feel so sad? You are fire, Mom is ice, both of you can combine, so why can't my magic? Dad, Mom, teach Bing what should I do now? A person's physique, according to the situation at birth, as well as the inheritance from their parents, had different attribute. Depending on the attribute, it was suitable to cultivate that attribute of magic or do-chi. If a person with fire attribute wanted to cultivate ice attribute magic or do-chi, it was almost impossible. Even if they forced themselves to cultivate, there wouldn't be any good results, and it would be difficult to achieve small success in their lifetime. The reason why Nian Bing could have two types of magic at the same time was because of the stimulation from the stone of the ice goddess and stone of the fire god given to her by her parents at the Ice God Tower. However, it was also inseparable from her own attribute. Generally speaking, if the attributes of the husband and wife were different, the child would only inherit one of the attributes. But Nian Bing's parents, their own attributes were very strong, and could be said to be two extremes. Therefore, when Nian Bing was born, she had two attributes at the same time. Such a person with dual attributes was 1 in 10,000. If the attributes were not opposite, and she cultivated magic and became a dual attribute magician, she would be famous in the continent. However, Nian Bing's dual attributes were the two opposite ones. Ice and fire were the enemies of each other. For the past year, without any guidance, Nian Bing had accidentally cultivated two opposite types of magic at the same time. Because she had always maintained a state of balance, and her magic was not strong, there was no trouble. However, after a year of cultivation, with the help of the two best quality gems, her magic had reached the state of being bottled. Finally, because of the imbalance of magic during the day, it led to the current situation of ice and fire attacking each other. With ice and fire wreaking havoc in the body, an ordinary person would have already died from the rupture of their meridians. Even if Nian Bing herself had two opposite attributes, under this kind of situation, she still entered a state of imminent danger. If something went wrong, she would either set herself on fire, or her whole body would be extinguished by ice. The red and blue lights were still alternately shining, and Nian Bing's body's spasms were becoming more and more intense. The intense pain stimulated the meridians in her body, and blood was gradually seeping out of her pores. The stone of the ice goddess and the stone of the fire god seemed to have entered a state of frenzy along with Nian Bing's body. The ice and fire elements were crazily attacking Nian Bing's body at several times the usual speed, and the frenzy of the two types of magic became more and more intense. Seeing that Nian Bing's life was about to end under the mutual attack of the two types of magic, suddenly, a warm green light spread out from her chest, simultaneously merging with the ice and fire magic. At this time, Nian Bing's body was no longer half blue and half red. In the process of the two types of magic pouring into each other, they had already flowed throughout her body and were in a state of fusion. Under the fusion of that soft green aura, Nian Bing cried out. The ice and fire elements in her body actually began to slowly rotate under the influence of that green energy. Although they were still attacking each other, it was not as frenzied as before. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Nian Bing hurriedly operated her spiritual power in an attempt to control the two types of magic that were conflicting with each other. However, she shockingly discovered that all the magic elements in her body began to fuse with the green light vortex. Although the speed of the fusion was very slow, it could not be stopped. The green light only appeared for an instant before disappearing. After the magic in Nian Bing's body entered this strange state, the pain caused by the cold and heat had already disappeared. The rotating ice and fire elements had reached a miraculous state of fusion. In the slow rotation, the ice and fire elements seemed to have completely separated, yet also seemed to have completely fused together. The battle between them became weaker and weaker. The red and blue vortex slowly rotated. The vortex looked very beautiful, with one circle of blue and one circle of red. The magic power condensed as it rotated. The stone of the ice goddess and the stone of the fire god were still transmitting magic elements at several times the usual speed. The magic power that was originally scattered in her limbs and bones was gradually gathered by the vortex. The vortex was not big, and as the two types of magic powers gathered, the blue and red light gradually became sparkling and translucent. Rong Tian smiled as he stroked his son's hair and said, "Ice can extinguish fire. However, when fire reaches a certain level, it can also extinguish ice. They are mutually exclusive. Among the four types of common magic elements, only water and fire have the closest relationship. Ice is the same. They are both filled with vitality. There was once a senior magician who said that when fire and water reach a subtle level, they can be converted into each other. Nothing in the world is absolute. As long as the strength of the elements does not change, there is only a fine line between fire and water elements. This saying once had a great impact in the magic world. There were few who agreed with it and many who disagreed. Originally, I was the one who disagreed with it. However, after I married your mother, I discovered that the saying of the fusion of fire and water is not impossible. However, as a fire element magician, my understanding of ice is really too little. It is impossible for me to convert fire into ice. Sigh, if your mother had not been captured, perhaps we would have been able to discover the true origin of ice and fire by researching together for a while. The young Nian Bing asked curiously, Father, what is the fusion of fire and water? How did you discover it? Rong Tian coughed awkwardly to hide the redness on his face. He said perfunctorily, You are still young. Father will tell you when you grow up. Water and fire were the two most closely related magic elements. Could it be that his current situation was the fusion of fire and water that his father was talking about? Ice and water came from the same source. Could it be that ice and fire also came from the same source? Ling Yanbing was not used to the huge change in his body. However, he vaguely understood that he had to maintain this situation. He had to let the two magic elements continue to circulate in their current state. Only then would he not be destroyed by their mutual attacks. For the first time in a year, Nian Bing's body returned to the normal temperature of a human. He was no longer half cold and half hot. The warm and peaceful feeling allowed him to enter a meditative state again. He relaxed his consciousness in comfort. The sweetness came after the bitterness. He did not know that from this moment onwards, he had become the first magician in the entire continent who had the same source of ice and fire. Although he had only entered the initial stage of the same source of ice and fire, the uniqueness of the magic he used in the future was far from what a normal magician could compare to. In the morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone into the room through the window, Nian Bing woke up from his meditative state. The two magic elements that were originally clearly separated in his body had disappeared. What replaced them was a fist-sized vortex of red and blue. The two different magic elements complemented each other and slowly rotated. Neither of them invaded the other. The sparkling blue and sparkling red looked so gorgeous. Nian Bing could clearly feel that his perception of the magic elements seemed to be much stronger than before. He touched the jade pendant hanging in front of his chest and murmured, Auntie, thank you. If it wasn't for this heavenly pendant that helped me stabilize my magic in time, I'm afraid Nian Bing will repay your kindness one day. At the time of crisis, that green light had come from the heavenly pendant. Blue sky warm jade rising smoke. This jade pendant carved from white jade was much more effective than he had imagined. A light flashed in his eyes. He raised the hand holding the morning dew dagger and softly chanted, Ice element, I beg you, condense into a sharp giant blade and cut open the world's fetters and shackles. Blue light shone from the stone of the ice goddess. Clearly visible ice elements condensed and took shape. A blue solid ice blade appeared in front of him. The vortex in his body was still rotating unceasingly. The use of the ice blade technique did not affect it at all. He could not even feel the decrease in his ice magic. The vortex was still rotating in a balanced state. Nian Bing's heartbeat quickened. He subconsciously took out the stone of fire and chanted again, Fire element, I beg you, condense into a sharp giant blade and cut open the world's fetters and shackles. Flames replaced the blue ice blade. In the flickering light, a solid flame blade appeared in front of him. It was also in his right hand, but there was no difference between ice and fire. Nian Bing's heart trembled. The ingenious combination of ice and fire allowed him to truly possess the ability to use two types of magic that countered each other. With a flash of light, under the urging of his spiritual force, the ice blade and flame blade collided in the air. With a whoosh, water vapor rose. The two second-tier magic disappeared at the same time. Success. That's great. I can finally use two types of magic. Nian Bing excitedly jumped off the bed. The origin of ice and fire gave him a special ability. There was a knock on the door. Jia Ji's voice came from outside. "What are you yelling for so early in the morning? Open the door." Nian Bing hurriedly put away the stone of fire and went to open the door. As soon as Jia Ji saw him, he immediately covered his nose. "Wah, it stinks to death. Brat, did you take a dump in the room?" Nian Bing stared blankly for a moment. He lowered his head to look at himself. Only then did he discover that his body had unknowingly become sticky. Even his clothes were stained with a paste-like substance. He felt extremely uncomfortable. Jia Ji sized up Nian Bing from head to toe. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised. After not seeing him for a night, Nian Bing's body seemed to have grown a little taller. The biggest change was his eyes. The originally childish gaze actually became a lot deeper. It felt like an adult. Especially the lustrous luster in the depths of his eyes, it gave people a kind of special feeling. "Nian Bing, what happened last night?" Jia Ji asked in surprise. Nian Bing scratched his head and said, "Master, my magic seems to have broken through and reached another level. I also don't know why I'm sweating so much." Of course, he didn't know that this was because the collision of ice and fire was too violent. It completely forced out the impurities in his body, causing him to undergo a rebirth process. That was why his body had these changes. Jia Ji frowned and said, "I don't understand magic, but it's always a good thing to have improved. Quickly go and wash up. We're going back to the peach blossom forest. Don't wear these clothes. I don't think they'll come out even if I wash them." Nian Bing agreed, and turned around to wash up in the bathroom in the room. Looking at his chubby figure, Jia Ji revealed a thoughtful expression. He sighed and said, "Let's leave everything to fate." Pushing the wooden cart, Nian Bing followed beside Jia Ji. The two slowly walked out of the city. Today's weather was very clear. There were no clouds in the blue sky for thousands of miles. The cool morning air constantly blew, making it especially comfortable. Seeing that they were about to reach the north gate, the sound of horse hooves suddenly sounded from outside the gate. The Ice Moon Empire soldiers who were guarding the city lined up neatly on both sides. Some of them chased away the people who were preparing to enter and leave the city. 3 carriages quickly drove into the city. The carriages were completely white. On both sides of the carriages were embroidered a huge 6-pointed star with silver silk thread. In the middle of the 6-pointed star was a fine ice flower. Seeing such a symbol, the commoners in Ice Snow City couldn't help but be in awe. Some even respectfully saluted the carriages. Of course, this didn't include Jia Ji and Nian Bing. Nian Bing couldn't be more familiar with the symbol of the ice flower. He had long clenched his fist. His eyes were filled with intense hatred. It was them. They were the ones who took away his happiness. The carriages quickly drove past. Jia Ji coughed and said, "Let's go." Nian Bing's expression relaxed. He secretly told himself that his current ability was still lacking. Patience. He must be patient. Although the journey from Ice Snow City to the Peach Blossom Forest wasn't far, they had to walk. They didn't return to the wooden house until noon. After dealing with the things he bought, Jia Ji let Nian Bing go back to his room to rest. Tomorrow, he would continue to learn his cooking skills. Nian Bing had just entered the realm of the same origin of ice and fire. He also wanted to consolidate his magic power. After eating the delicious lunch made by Jia Ji, he directly went back to his room to rest. Time passed day by day. Nian Bing gradually grew up under Jia Ji's guidance. On the second day after returning from Ice Snow City, he understood why Jia Ji told him that if he wanted to learn how to cook well, he had to go through the process of going from thin to fat, and then from fat to thin. From thin to fat, naturally, he had to taste Jia Ji's food every day and distinguish the taste. With a large amount of nutrition, he naturally became a little fatso. The process of going from fat to thin was relatively more painful. Jia Ji's method was very simple. He let Nian Bing be responsible for cooking every day. He would eat the food he made. He only gave some theoretical pointers and let Nian Bing figure out the rest by himself. In this way, Nian Bing lost weight and turned back to the delicate and handsome young man. What kind of food a novice made? Perhaps anyone could imagine. After tasting the delicious food, it was rare to eat the food he made. It was impossible for him not to lose weight. In these 2 years, Nian Bing had built a solid foundation. From the 3rd year onwards, he entered the process of formally learning how to cook. Jia Ji was very strict with him. Every day's practice would always make Nian Bing exhausted. The meditation at night was his best rest. Not only could it help his body recover from fatigue, but in the process of learning how to cook and meditating, his spiritual power's speed of improvement was not slower than his magic power. The more time he spent learning, the more Nian Bing realized the magic of cooking. The various cooking methods in Jia Ji's mind were as unfathomable as the sea. Nian Bing seemed to have forgotten his hatred and devoted himself to learning how to cook. Under Jia Ji's guidance, his comprehension gradually showed. He would often come up with new ideas and discuss with Jia Ji. In the 5th year, Nian Bing was no longer learning from Jia Ji. Instead, he gradually combined magic and cooking together with Jia Ji. In this way, not only did it improve his cooking skills, it was also the best way to practice his magic control. All kinds of delicacies made by magic appeared in Nian Bing's hands again and again. The skills of the ghost chef were imparted to him. "Master, what do you want to eat for lunch today? Your health hasn't been very good recently. I'll go catch 2 fish for you to make a meal. The bright flame fish soup I researched a few days ago will definitely whet your appetite." Nian Bing finished his compulsory lesson of chopping firewood and came to Jia Ji's room to ask. Jia Ji was sitting on a recliner in the room. The wrinkles on his face were much deeper than a few years ago. "Nian Bing, come in and sit down. Master has something to say to you." Nian Bing was stunned for a moment. He strode into the room and pulled a chair to sit beside Jia Ji. "Master, what's wrong with you today? My chopping skills have reached great success. Don't you want to see it? It's time to cook. Your stomach isn't good. If you don't eat on time, your stomach will act up again." Jia Ji looked at Nian Bing's concerned gaze and smiled. "It's been 8 years. You've been with me for 8 years. In 8 years, you've grown from a child to a handsome young man. Master doesn't have much to teach you. With your current skills, you've completely surpassed your master. Silly boy, Master has been lying to you. Chopping with a chopping knife, as long as the thread is as uniform as hair, you've already reached great success. There's no need to reach the level of hanging but not falling. Your knife skills have already far surpassed the level of master when he was at his peak. I didn't expect that my theoretical idea would actually be achieved by you. Miraculous skills are nothing more than this. I have nothing more to teach you. So you should go." His 18-year-old disciple looked exceptionally handsome. Although he was wearing plain clothes, it still couldn't hide his handsome appearance. Tall stature, broad shoulders, long blonde hair, he was almost perfect. Nian Bing looked at Jia Ji blankly. "Master, you're saying that I can leave?" When he first started to learn cooking from Jia Ji, there wasn't a moment when he didn't want to learn Jia Ji's skills and leave this place. However, people have feelings. After 8 years together, although Jia Ji was extremely strict with him, he and Jia Ji had already developed a strong relationship. When he heard Jia Ji telling him to leave, an indescribable sense of loss rose in his heart. Looking at his master, who was much older than 8 years ago, he said, "Master, you're already so old. If I leave, who will take care of you?" Jia Ji smiled. "Silly boy, before you came, wasn't I also alone? Don't worry, I'm a ghost chef. I won't starve to death. Your cooking skills are just like mine in the past. You've already reached the level of a bottle. If you continue to stay here, you won't be able to improve. Only by walking and seeing more can you have a deeper understanding. It won't be a waste of my teaching." Nian Bing's eyes flashed. Master, I can't bear to leave you. Jia Ji held Nian Bing's slender hand and sighed. Silly girl, do you want to stay here with me forever? Even if you stay with me, there will be a day when I will die. In the beginning, I took you as my disciple out of selfishness. I only wanted to pass on my skills. Not only did you not blame me, you also wholeheartedly followed me to learn cooking. After so many years, it's been hard on you. Nian Bing's body trembled. Master, you already know? Jia Ji smiled. When you took out that ice stone and saw the intense hatred in your eyes when you saw the Ice God Tower's carriage, I already knew that my hypnosis technique didn't work at all. Did you know? At that time, I was a little scared. At that time, you were only a 10-year-old child, but you had such a deep scheming heart. This was something I never thought of. I really didn't know whether I should be happy to have such a smart and steady disciple, or afraid of your scheming heart. However, all of this isn't important now. I believe that you are a good child. In your heart there must be a story about your parents. Master, I will tell you everything. Nian Bing's voice trembled. Looking at Jia Ji's kind face, he suddenly had an ominous premonition. Jia Ji shook his head. No, keep it in your heart. I think that your parents should be related to the Ice God Tower. That's why you showed such deep hatred when you saw that carriage. Child, there is nothing wrong with hatred. However, as I said when I tried to hypnotize you, before you have enough power, this hatred must be hidden in your heart. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Nian Bing nodded firmly. Master, I promise you that before I have enough power, I will not try to go to the Ice God Tower to take revenge. Jia Ji smiled. That's good. Nian Bing, my master once said to me, 10 years to practice cooking, 10 years to comprehend cooking. These words, I have remembered them for my whole life. When I came to this peach blossom forest, I added another 8 words: life alone, defeat and death. Chapter 8. 10 years of cooking practice, 10 years of cooking comprehension, a lonely life, 1 defeat and death. Nian Bing repeated Jia Ji's words. Master, I understand. Don't worry, I will definitely take back the title of Ghost Chef for you. Jia Ji gently shook his head, saying, No need. The Ghost Chef is me, not you. You learned my skills, but you can't be satisfied with the status quo. Only by constantly improving can you reach the peak of cooking. Chef is a very common profession on the continent. You need to work hard to cultivate magic, and this profession is your best cover. I don't hate that woman, and you don't need to look for her. The past is the past. If it wasn't for her, perhaps I wouldn't be able to comprehend the mystery of combining magic and cooking, and I wouldn't have such a good disciple like you. As he spoke, his wrinkled hand took out a long cloth bag from the side and handed it to Nian Bing. This is my old partner, I'll leave it to you. Take it out and let me see. Nian Bing opened the cloth bag, and when the wrapped cloth disappeared little by little, a knife appeared in front of her. Kitchen knives generally don't have a scabbard, but this one does, just like her morning dew. The blade is about the same length as the morning dew, but the blade is much wider, at 4 inches, and the back is extremely thick, at ½ an inch. When she held it in her hand, the weight is as great as 3 morning dew knives. The scabbard is vermilion red, with an ancient pattern on it. Nian Bing held the hilt that fits her hand and slowly pulled out the knife. A faint scorching aura came from the dark red blade, and Nian Bing's hand trembled. The stone of fire in her arms let out a low roar, and the magic of ice and fire in her body rotated faster because of the stone of fire's agitation. When the whole knife was pulled out of the scabbard, the originally uncoordinated wide blade and thick back actually showed an unusual beauty. The whole knife was flowing with a dark red luster, and the edges of the blade were sharp, like a shark's fin, with beautiful streamlined lines running through the entire blade. Holding it in her hand, the feeling of raging fire made Ling Nian Bing's blood boil. This is a treasured saber that I got after I became famous. It's my old partner, like a brother, and has always been by my side. Do you still remember Hua Tian? Apart from your morning dew, this is also his proudest work. This sword wasn't made of metal. To be more precise, it was carved out of metal. Its basic material is the horn of a fire dragon. Fire dragon horn? Master, is there really a fire dragon? Nian Bing asked curiously as she looked at the beautiful streamlined pattern on the Xingyang saber. I can't answer your question. I can only say that it exists in legends. Even if there were very few of them. Back then, I found the fire dragon horn in a valley. Due to the heat from the horn, I knew that it must be a treasure. Thus, I found Hua Tian and let him take a look. At that time, he told me that he wanted this horn and that I could ask for as much as I wanted. Your master is so shrewd. I said to him, I can give you the horn, but you have to make the saber that you are most proud of in your life, to be my kitchen knife. Hua Tian agreed, and that was how the righteous Yang saber appeared. He was indeed a good friend, directly using the fire dragon horn to carve this treasured saber. Because it was carved, there weren't any cracks on the saber. Furthermore, it has the aura of a fire dragon, and is of the fire attribute. At that time, if I hadn't been too careless and didn't use the Xingyang saber during the competition with that girl, even if she had magic in her kitchen, she wouldn't have been able to beat me. The title of Ghost Chef is not just a rumor. Speaking to this point, Jia Ji coughed a few times, but the pride in his eyes did not diminish. Master, you should rest for a while. Don't talk any more. Nian Bing patted Jia Ji's back with concern. Jia Ji smiled. I'm fine. I'm just too happy. My disciple is about to graduate. In the end, I didn't bring my skills to the grave. Nian Bing, what are your plans after leaving this place? Nian Bing stared blankly, saying, Master, I've never thought about this question. Jia Ji said, Then you should listen to my advice. After leaving here, you should go to Ice Snow City. I don't know if that old fellow Hua Tian is dead yet. Go pay him a visit on my behalf. As the continent's #1 blacksmith, he has a lot of treasures. It's definitely not just the ones you saw that day. Who knows, you might even be able to get some benefit. Nian Bing's eyes suddenly reddened. She held Jia Ji's hand tightly. Master, I don't want to go. I really don't want to go. Jia Ji's eyes flashed with a strange light. Silly child, didn't I say that you can't always be under my protection? What needs to go will eventually go. Ice Snow Cities de Qingxian and Qingfengzhai are famous restaurants in the Ice Moon Empire. That will be your first stop. You can choose any one of them. Find a way to enter the kitchen and observe the skills of the chefs there. Perhaps it will be beneficial for you. However, you must remember that once you reveal your cooking skills, you must leave. Otherwise, with your current ability, you will be easily noticed by others. If you are discovered by the country's officials, there will be a lot of trouble. Nian Bing nodded with tears in her eyes. Master, I will remember. I will definitely learn from you and travel to every corner of the continent to learn how to cook all kinds of dishes. I will definitely not let you down. Jia Ji wiped away Nian Bing's tears and kindly said, Silly child, what are you crying for? Just remember this is enough. On the left side of the kitchen stove, the wall is hollow. There are some of my savings inside. You can take a portion of it with you. It should be enough for your travel expenses. Although money is not a good thing, without it, everything will be difficult. There's no harm in taking more. As for everything else, you will have to rely on yourself to figure it out. Oh, by the way, I feel that it is not enough for you to just cultivate your magic power. If there is a chance, you should find a high-level magic master to guide you. You must learn to be flexible when you encounter difficulties. As long as they have something to teach you, there is no harm in taking them as your master. Live and learn, this is what every senior chef must do. Nian Bing nodded. Looking at Jia Ji's face that was faintly red, the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger. Jia Ji smiled. His smile was very calm. Child, your perception is much stronger than your master's. Although it is only 8 years, you have learned much more than I did in 10 years. 8 years of cooking, 8 years of cooking comprehension, but I don't want you to be alone for the rest of your life. If there is a suitable girl in the future, don't let her go. Go after her. Happiness is something that you have to fight for. Nian Bing knew nothing about the matters between men and women. Master, let's talk about this later. Jia Ji said seriously. No, you must promise me this. This is something that you have to do. I don't want the tragedy that happened to me to happen to you. Having a stable family will only be good for you. When you continue to study cooking in the future, it will also make your heart more stable. Oh, by the way, didn't you say that you want to make fish soup for me? Go now. Master is really a little hungry. These few years I have been eating your cooking. Even my own cooking is a little tasteless. Nian Bing nodded vigorously and said, Master, don't worry. I will definitely make the most delicious fish soup for you to taste. Jia Ji smiled slightly, waved at her and said, Go, go. Master is waiting for you. Nian Bing agreed. She gathered her emotions, stood up and ran out quickly. Looking at Nian Bing's back, Jia Ji's eyes shone with gratification. Child, I didn't misjudge you. Although you are a little scheming, you are still a person who is loyal to your heart. With such a disciple, what else do I have to miss? His hand trembled as he picked up the Xingyang saber. He sighed softly and quickly wrote on the ground. Although the handwriting was crooked, it was still recognizable. Nian Bing ran quickly to the river. In order to let his master eat the fish soup he made quickly, he directly went into the water to catch fish. After living in the river for so many years, he had already become a good swimmer. After a while, he caught 2 fat black carps and returned to the shore. Looking at the lively fish in his hands, he ignored the water stains on his body and said to himself, Today's fish is so fresh. Master, I will definitely make a good fish soup that you will be satisfied with. As he said, Nian Bing ran back to the peach blossom forest excitedly. After a few strides, he had already arrived in front of the wooden house. Master, master, look, I caught 2 big fish. I am afraid that you will be full just by eating fish today. Master, when Nian Bing returned to Jia Ji's room, he was suddenly stunned. His whole body was stiff and motionless as if it was frozen. Jia Ji was still lying there, lying in that comfortable recliner. However, his eyes were already closed. His serene appearance made him look like he was sleeping. However, Nian Bing clearly knew that this was not Jia Ji's sleeping posture. Moreover, his master's snoring had not stopped for a single day. But now he must. Foo! The fish fell to the ground, jumping and struggling, trying to find a way to survive. However, how could a fish continue to survive without water? Nian Bing flew to the front of the recliner and tightly grasped Jia Ji's hand. His own hand was trembling, and so was his heart. Jia Ji's hand was already a little cold, and his chest was not moving up and down. Nian Bing's trembling fingers were placed under Jia Ji's nose. He was looking forward to it, hoping. However, everything was so cruel, and all his hopes turned into bubbles. Jia Ji had already passed away. He had passed away with a satisfied smile. Tears poured down uncontrollably. Nian Bing was in extreme pain. He could not cry out loud. His body kept shaking, and scenes of the past kept flashing in his mind. Jia Ji had saved him, brought him to the peach blossom forest, and taught him everything he knew. All these years, Jia Ji had been like a father to him, taking care of him in every possible way. 8 years, why was it only a short 8 years? Master, Nian Bing was still waiting for you to see me reach the peak of culinary skills. How could you just pass away like this? Don't you want to see Nian Bing become the best chef? Master, why did you have to die? Why? Nian Bing's heart was bleeding. In his life, other than that time in the Ice God Tower, this was the saddest moment for him. He lowered his head and his tears fell on the ground. He saw the Xingyang saber. A faint stream of heat flowed along the blade. That was his master's favorite. On the ground, a few lines of crooked words appeared. Nianbing, I'm afraid I won't be able to wait for the fish soup you made. In fact, my heart died when the tendons in my hands were broken. As a chef, not being able to make a dish that you clearly know is more painful than death. The reason why I'm struggling to live is because I don't want my skills to go with me. Nianbing, I'm selfish. I'm sorry, but I'm leaving behind my skills. I believe that you will continue to pass down what you've learned, carry forward your culinary skills, and become the greatest chef. Master didn't want to leave so soon either, but my body couldn't take it any longer. Every time, I told myself that I had to persevere until the moment when I could surpass me. God has been kind to me. He has allowed me to persevere until this day. Nianbing, do you know? When I saw that your culinary skills were far better than mine, I was so excited. I was even more excited than if I could cook with my own hands again. Don't be sad. It's meaningless. Put all your emotions into the cultivation of culinary skills and magic. Finally, I want to remind you that revenge is necessary, but you must act according to your ability. Be careful, be careful. I'm going now. When you come back and see me, take what you should take. Don't touch my body. I like this recliner. Burn this place down. To be able to be reduced to ashes by your fire magic, Master's death can be considered worthy. When he wrote the last few words, they were already very blurry. If Nianbing wasn't very familiar with Chaji's handwriting, she might not have been able to recognize it. Especially the last word, Chaji only wrote half of it. Master, are you really going to leave like this? Nianbing's tears had already soaked Chaji's chest. He carefully combed Chaji's hair, stood up, took a few steps back, and knelt on the ground with a plop. He kowtowed 9 times to Chaji. Master, I know that you don't want to see a weak Nianbing. Don't worry, I will be strong. From the moment I left the Ice God Tower, I told myself that I must be strong. Tears can only flow from the eyes of my enemies. However, I still cried today. Master, don't worry. As long as Nianbing is still alive, I will definitely fulfill your last wish and carry forward the path of culinary skills. This is my promise to you. Standing up and sheathing the Zhengyang saber, Nianbing resolutely wiped away the tears on her face. She took one last deep look at Chaji's face and resolutely walked out of the room. The wind was gentle and the clouds were light. The sunlight shone on the peach blossom forest, causing the uneven shadows of the trees to appear on the ground. The gentle breeze brought along the fragrance of the peach blossoms. Nianbing took a deep breath, suppressing the sadness in her heart. Following Chaji's instructions, she took out some purple coins from the empty wall in the kitchen and wrapped them into a simple cloth bag. One step, she walked forward. When Nianbing took the 17th step, she suddenly turned around. Master, this disciple has left. When the day comes that I have learned something, I will definitely come back to pay respects to your departed soul. Fire. Burn, scorching flame. In my name, I order you, surging flame, follow my guidance and turn everything into ashes. Sea of fire, prairie fire. The Zhengyang saber was unsheathed, and a red light suddenly shone. The red light could clearly be seen condensing on Nianbing's body. The scorching aura dyed Nianbing's body like a flaming war god. The Zhengyang saber pointed forward, and the surging flame suddenly expanded. In an instant, it engulfed the 2 wooden huts except for the kitchen. Looking at the raging fire in front of her, Nianbing seemed to see her master's smiling face again. Her vision was a blur, but she forced herself not to let her tears fall. She secretly swore in her heart, from today onwards, she would become stronger. Only a strong person could live longer, and could better fulfill her master's and her master's wishes. Sea of fire, prairie fire, a 4th rank large area fire spell. Although it was also a 4th rank spell, because it covered a large area, it required a high-level mage to use it. The scorching flame quickly turned the wooden hut that Nianbing had lived in for 8 years into ashes. At the same time, her master, Ghost Chef Cha-ji, also fell into the yellow soil. Everything disappeared. Nian Bing's eyes were filled with hot tears, and she embarked on the journey that Cha-ji had arranged for her. He did not know what awaited him in front of him, but he was very clear, no matter what difficulties and obstacles, they would not be able to stop him from moving forward. The peach blossom forest regained its peace, and the ruins of the wooden hut emitted green smoke in spirals. Just 2 hours after Nian Bing left, the original ashes suddenly moved, and the sound of wood breaking rang out. With the sound of branches, a wooden board flipped up from below. A staggering figure seemed to crawl out from the ground, covered in dust. "Good boy, you are really ruthless. If not for my quick movements, I would have really become ashes." The person who suddenly crawled out from the ruins was actually the previously dead Cha-ji. Brushing off the dust on his body, he appeared to be in high spirits, and did not look sick at all. Looking at the direction that Nian Bing left in, Cha-ji laughed. "Silly boy, master has no choice but to lie to you one more time. If not to let you think that I am already dead, how can you wholeheartedly pursue the peak of culinary arts? Damn, this turtle-breathing technique is really harmful. Fortunately, I have practiced it for a long time and have been in seclusion for a long time. Sigh, it burns so cleanly, looks like I have no choice but to leave. Should I go look for her? Go, since I have no more worries, I will do what I have always wanted to do. As long as I can see her one more time, even if I die, I am willing. Nian Bing, go in peace. Maybe one day we master and disciple will meet again, ha ha, ha 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 ha." Nian Bing walked on the main road, and his heart was still immersed in the grief of Cha-ji's death. He was completely unaware that he had been played by master once again. The Zhengyang blade and morning dew blade were in his arms, and the cold and hot air constantly stimulated his body. Due to the continuous circulation of the ice attribute magic in his body, although the sun was high up in the sky, he did not feel the slightest bit of heat. Ice Snow City. Master wants me to go to Ice Snow City, then let's go there first. Without pushing the cart or following Cha-ji's footsteps, Nian Bing walked very quickly. He suddenly wanted to leave this place, to leave this sad place. But, at the same time, he also knew that one day he would return. At that time, the one who would return would be Nian Bing, who was filled with hatred. "Great ice element, please lend me your anger, and send us to the lost shore." Snowstorm. There was no one on the main road. Nian Bing chanted a large-scale ice attribute magic, and the surrounding air suddenly became cold. Under the effect of the blue magic, through the stone of the ice goddess, a huge magic effect burst forth. Wind and snow came together, turning the area covered by the magic into a sea of ice and snow. With a slight smile, Nian Bing's body moved. He moved very quickly, and the morning dew blade had unknowingly jumped into his hand. A faint blue light enveloped his body, and he moved along with the snowstorm. Although he did not fly high, his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared at the end of the main road. Ice God Tower. Is it the presence of the stone of the ice goddess again? After so many years, it has finally appeared again. This time, I will not let you escape from my grasp. No matter who has the stone of the ice goddess, they have already violated the dignity of the ice goddess. There can only be one result, and that is death. The great priest of the ice goddess, quietly left the ice god tower and embarked on the journey to find the stone of the ice goddess alone. After using a snowstorm, Nian Bing greatly reduced the time needed to move forward. When his feet touched the ground, his sorrowful mood had already been soothed by the ice-cold magic. In the distance, the tall ice city wall was already in sight. Although he had come here every year to buy some things, other than the first time he came here to visit the divine smith Master Huatian, he and Jia had only moved around the north gate. After buying the necessary things, they would immediately return to the peach blossom forest. However, it was different this time. There was no way back for him. Nian Bing took a deep breath and walked towards Ice Snow City with determination. Entering the city was as easy as before. Soon, he entered the city. The scenery on both sides was still the same. Only a few shops had changed owners. Master had told him to find Senior Hua Tian first. Since that was the case, he would go there first. He had just obtained the righteous Yang saber. It was of the fire attribute. Maybe he could embed the stone of fire god on it. If that was the case, he would have 2 peerless divine blades. When he cooked in the future, it would be easier to use them. While thinking, Nian Bing walked in the direction of the Aquafire ironware shop based on his memory. The last time he came, he had to walk through the streets and alleys in the dark. This time, Nian Bing was in a difficult situation. He searched for an entire morning, but he still couldn't find the exact location. Suddenly, he had an idea. He remembered that he saw a very big weapon shop the last time he came here. It seemed to be called Treasure Pavilion. As long as he could find that place, he might be able to find a fake ironware shop. Perhaps no one would recognize the fake ironware shop, but there would definitely be people who would know the name of the big weapon shop, Treasure Pavilion. Having reached this point in his train of thought, he immediately sprang into action. Just as he had expected, after asking a few people, he finally found the exact location. When he arrived at the Treasured Instrument Pavilion, his memory of the location suddenly became clear. He sped up, turning around and around until he found his destination. The door was still so dilapidated. Compared to 7 years ago, it hadn't changed at all. The sign was still there, but there seemed to be more dust on it. Nian Bing thought of Hua Tian's appearance and couldn't help but smile. He went up to the door and knocked a few times. He said loudly, "Senior Hua Tian, are you there?" There was no sound from inside the door. Nian Bing waited for a while before calling again. Just when he thought there was no one in the room, the dilapidated door suddenly opened. A pretty face peeked out from behind the door. Are you looking for my master?" Nian Bing could swear that this was the most beautiful voice he had ever heard in his life. It was a girl who seemed to be about the same age as him. Because her body was peeking out, her pink hair was hanging down. Her big blue eyes revealed 3 parts surprise and 7 parts shyness. Looking at him, she seemed to be a little scared. Chapter 9. After all, Nian Bing had been practicing magic for many years, and her mental strength was strong to a certain extent. She coughed to cover up her embarrassment and said, "Miss, hello, I'm here to look for Senior Hua Tian, is he here?" The young girl sized up Nian Bing a few times and asked with some doubt, "Who are you? Why are you looking for him?" Hearing the young girl's question, Nian Bing couldn't help but think of her master, and sighed. "I'm here on my master's dying wish, to pay a visit to Senior Hua Tian." The young girl still didn't believe Nian Bing and asked, "Who is your master?" Nian Bing frowned and said, "A disciple shouldn't mention her master's name. My master used to have a nickname called Ghost Chef." Hearing the 2 words Ghost Chef, the young girl was startled, opened the door, and walked out. Nian Bing was finally able to see her appearance clearly. She was wearing a blue shirt and pants. Except for her head, her entire body was wrapped in clothes. The collar was high, protecting her neck, and her exquisite figure was curvaceous. A pair of beautiful blue eyes were staring at her without blinking. The blue of her eyes was different from her own. Hers was the deep blue of the sea, while hers was the clear blue of the sky, without any impurities. Nian Bing was surprised to find that the young girl was extremely tall. Even with her height that was much higher than the average person, she was only half a head taller than her. Her pair of slender thighs were covered in long pants, giving people a soul-stirring sense of beauty. The young girl saw that Nian Bing was sizing her up, and the shyness on her face became more prominent. She probed, Are you Senior Jia's disciple? You just said dying wish, could it be that Senior Jia has already?" Nian Bing nodded sadly and said, "My master just passed away." "Miss, is Senior Hua Tian here?" The young girl looked at Nian Bing with some doubt and said, The Senior Huatian you mentioned is my master, but I heard from my master that Senior Jia only had one disciple, Fatso. But you're not fat. Moreover, my master said that Senior Jia's body is very healthy. How could he die so easily? Nian Bing looked at the girl's serious expression, and the sadness caused by Jia Ji's death actually faded a little. She laughed and said, "Everyone has their own ups and downs. Who can say for sure how long they will live? What, do you think I'm a liar? The last time Senior Huatian saw me, I was only 11 years old. That was 7 years ago. I was fat back then, but that doesn't mean I'll be fat when I grow up. I'm that fatso you're talking about." A cold light flashed in the girl's eyes. She insisted, "Unless you take out something that can prove your identity, I won't let you see my master." Nian Bing said helplessly, "I remember that the last time I came back, Senior Huatian didn't seem to have accepted a disciple. Since you want proof, then take a look at this." As he said that, he reached into his bosom and took out the morning dew dagger that Huatian had made. When the girl saw the morning dew dagger, her eyes immediately lit up. She took the dagger and gently stroked the seemingly rusty scabbard. Feeling the chill from the scabbard, she muttered, that's right. This is it. Morning dew dagger." Her hand moved to the gemstone on the hilt. When she touched the diamond-shaped gemstone that emitted a cold aura, she was already somewhat convinced. Nian Bing looked at the treasured blade in the girl's hand and said, "I call it the sigh of the ice snow goddess." The girl was stunned and said, "What a beautiful name, but it sounds a little sad. Why do you call it that?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "I can't tell you this. It's my own secret. Beautiful miss, you can now bring me to see Senior Huatian." The girl nodded and walked inside with the morning dew dagger in her hand. "Follow me." Nian Bing followed the girl into the courtyard of the shop. It was still as empty as the last time. The furnace was placed in the center of the courtyard, and there were some other things beside it that seemed to be combustion-supporting materials. The girl brought Nian Bing into the room inside. This time, it was daytime, so Nian Bing could clearly see the dilapidated appearance of the two single-story houses. It seemed as if they would collapse at any time. The girl walked to the door and suddenly stopped. She turned her head to look at Nian Bing and said, "Please come in." After saying that, she pushed the door open and gestured for Nian Bing to enter. Nian Bing looked at the girl's clear blue eyes. He didn't know why, but a strong sense of trust rose in his heart. Without any doubt, he walked into the room. "Ah!" Nian Bing cried out in surprise. Just as he entered the room, his footsteps stopped. There was only one window in the room. The sky shone through the window, bringing some brightness to the gloomy room. Nian Bing saw a plaque on the counter. It was clearly a memorial tablet. On it was written, "Benevolent Master Huatian's Memorial Tablet." Nian Bing turned around abruptly and looked at the girl. "Senior Huatian is dead?" The girl's eyes were hazy. "Yes. 2 years ago, Master abandoned me." Nian Bing closed his eyes. The sadness in his heart was adjusted once again. He faced Huatian's memorial tablet again and walked forward. His hands hung by his sides as he respectfully bowed 3 times to the memorial tablet. "Senior, I didn't expect that after parting that day, we would not meet again. May Senior's spirit in heaven rest in peace. My master has also gone to heaven. Perhaps, when you see him again, you can ask him to make some delicious food for you." The girl had been looking at Nian Bing from behind. Seeing him so respectful to Huatian, she couldn't help but have a good impression of him. She walked to Nian Bing's side and said, "Although Master has passed away, his spirit is still there. He will always live in my heart. I will never forget the kindness of teaching me for 5 years. Unfortunately, Master didn't even give me the chance to serve him for a few more days." Nian Bing sighed deeply. Everyone will die one day. No one can control their own lifespan. Senior Huatian was like this. My master is also like this. I don't know when it will be my turn. The girl looked at Nian Bing's deep eyes that didn't match his age. A faint red light flashed through her blue eyes. I still don't know your name. Nian Bing woke up from his thoughts. Ah. That's my salute. My name is Nian Bing. Miss, what about you? The girl murmured, Nian Bing, Nian Bing. This name sounds very memorable. My name is Feng Nu, Nian Bing praised. You are indeed like a phoenix in the human world. Miss, you live up to your name. I really didn't expect that when I came here for the first time 7 years ago, Master and Senior Hua Tian were still teasing each other. But now, everything has changed. They are no longer here. Only you and I are left. It's not appropriate for a man and a woman to be in the same room. Since Senior Hua Tian has already passed away, I will also take my leave. Miss Feng Nu, we will meet again if fate wills it. Feng Nu watched as Nian Bing took the morning dew dagger from her hand and walked out. She suddenly called out, Wait a moment. Nian Bing looked back. Miss Feng Nu, is there anything else? Feng Nu's face revealed a faint blush. Fortunately, the light in the room wasn't enough, so it wasn't easy to notice. I just wanted to ask you, is there a reason you came to find my master this time? Nian Bing thought that since Feng Nu was Hua Tian's disciple, she might be able to help him. Thinking of this, he took out the righteous Yang saber and handed it over. Miss should have heard about this saber from Senior Hua Tian. Back then, this was Senior Hua Tian's proudest work. Feng Nu didn't need to look. She just put her hand on the handle of the saber. Her eyes immediately lit up, even brighter than when she was holding the morning dew dagger. Righteous Yang, is this the righteous Yang saber? Nian Bing nodded and said, It is the righteous Yang saber. Before Master died, he passed on his most beloved companion to me. I have always been carrying it with me. This time, I came to find Senior Hua Tian not only to see him, but also for this righteous Yang saber. Although the righteous Yang saber is good, it is still inferior to the morning dew dagger. And this difference is because it doesn't have a soul that truly belongs to it. Although the fire dragon horn is a rare treasure, it doesn't have the soul of the fire dragon. So, I want to attach a soul to this righteous Yang saber. If that's the case, it will definitely become a treasured saber that isn't inferior to the morning dew dagger. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing with burning eyes. You mean to say that you have a fire attribute gem that isn't inferior to the ice stone? Nian Bing smiled slightly. She reached into her clothes and took out the divine stone of fire. The flame-shaped gem emitted a faint red light. When it appeared, even the air in the room seemed to become restless. Feng Nu cried out in surprise. She took the divine stone of fire from Nian Bing's hands. Her body actually trembled slightly. Suddenly, a ball of fire rose from her body. Her originally pink hair instantly turned into a gorgeous red color. Even her blue eyes were dyed with a layer of faint red light. The scorching heat rushed towards her, forcing Nian Bing to raise the morning dew dagger in her hand. Her thumb flicked slightly, and the morning dew dagger was slightly unsheathed. A greenish-blue light flowed out, and a faint chill protected the front of Nian Bing, preventing her from being hurt by the scorching heat. The red light gradually disappeared, and Feng Nu returned to her normal state. A complicated light flashed across her eyes. What a good piece of top-grade firestone. If it's embedded in the righteous Yang saber, it can indeed greatly improve the quality of the saber. Although Master is no longer here, if you trust me, I'm willing to try to help you embed it in the righteous Yang saber. Looking at Feng Nu's clear eyes, Nian Bing's heart inexplicably skipped a beat. He almost agreed without thinking. However, he immediately calmed down. The fire from before made him clearly feel that the beautiful girl in front of him wasn't as simple as she appeared to be. He hesitated for a moment and said, Miss Feng Nu, I want to know how Senior Hua Tian died. Can you tell me? The divine stone of fire was left to him by his father. He definitely couldn't let anything happen to it because he was momentarily bewitched by her beauty. Back then, it was because of this stone that his father fell out with his family. He had to be careful. Feng Nu looked deeply at Nian Bing. I'm 17 this year. I was born in the Longmu Empire. My parents were only commoners. That year, a great plague broke out in my hometown and took their lives. From then on, I could only wander the street. 5 years ago, I came to Ice Snow City as a beggar and met Master. Master said that I was born with the heavenly fire physique. So he took me in as his disciple and taught me everything he knew. 5 years ago, Master felt that his body couldn't hold on any longer. However, he wasn't willing to give in to fate, so he started to practice the sword. When the sword was completed, he threw his body into the fire and poured his soul into the sword, creating a peerless divine sword. However, he didn't even leave behind a corpse. Not even ashes were left behind. He didn't die because his soul had completely merged into the sword. This sword uses Master's 9 mythical heavenly fire as a guide and uses Master as the soul. Therefore, I named this sword the Parting Heaven Sword. You should have heard about its material from Senior Jiaji. It's the same as the righteous Yang saber. It's the fire dragon's horn from back then. As she spoke, Feng Nu returned the divine stone of fire and the righteous Yang saber to Nian Bing and walked into the room. Nian Bing's heart trembled. When Feng Nu was describing how Hua Tian used his body to practice the sword, the deep sorrow in the depths of her eyes couldn't be faked. She couldn't help but believe her identity a little. After a while, Feng Nu walked out from the room. She held a long sword with both hands. The scabbard was similar to the righteous Yang saber. It was also vermilion red, and there was a lifelike 5-clawed fire dragon carved on it. The fire dragon held a white pearl in its mouth which emitted a gentle glow. It made the entire scabbard look exceptionally gorgeous. The hilt was ribbed and there was a piece of jade inlaid at the end. It was white jade. Nian Bing was too familiar with this kind of jade. It was the same sheep-fat white jade as his heavenly flower tablet. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing and said, "This is the Parting Heaven sword that Master left behind. The sword is 3 feet 7 inches long and 1.5 inches wide. The blade is 2 feet 8 inches long and the hilt is 9 inches long." With a light swoosh, the sound of a dragon's roar resounded throughout the room. The sword was unsheathed and a fiery red glow filled the air. A scorching aura was suddenly emitted. Feng Nu's wrist trembled slightly and the Parting Heaven sword immediately brought out a fiery red light screen. "Good sword," Nian Bing blurted out. Looking at the red blade with a restrained aura, he could clearly feel that this was a good sword that was definitely not below the quality of morning dew. Feng Nu smiled and looked at the blade. Her eyes were filled with emotions. Yes, it is a good sword. Although it doesn't have a top-grade gem embedded in it, unlike your morning dew which can be used as a magical staff, it still contains Master's spirit. As a long sword used by a martial artist, it is definitely the best of the best. I think that now there is no need for us to suspect each other of anything. Nian Bing's face turned red and said, "Miss Feng Nu, I don't want to suspect you of anything. It's just that this fiery rock is the only thing that my father left behind for me. So, I have no choice but to be cautious." Feng Nu's eyes revealed a gentle glow. "I don't blame you. But now I have explained everything clearly to you. As a blacksmith, what could be more blissful than personally creating a peerless divine blade? Please allow me to help you perfect the Xingyang saber, alright? The carving will take a long time. In this period of time, you can take my Blazing Heaven sword. After the carving is done, you can bring the Blazing Heaven sword and the fiery rock here. I think, when it comes to the actual embedding, I still need your help." Nian Bing shook his head and said, No need. Feng Nu, can I just call you that? I'll leave the Xingyang saber to you. I don't need to take the Blazing Heaven sword. My master and Senior Hua Tian are good friends. I hope that we can become friends. I believe you." As he said, he turned the Xingyang saber around and handed the handle to Feng Nu. The Phoenix girl was slightly taken aback. She flipped her wrist and the Parting Heaven sword returned to its sheath. She took the Xingyang saber. When she held the thick handle of the saber, Her slender fingers accidentally touched Nian Bing's. Both of them were shocked. They had not had much contact with the opposite sex, so they could not help but blush. Feng Nu lowered her head and looked at the Xingyang saber. Why do you believe me so quickly? Nian Bing smiled and said, because I believe in my intuition. Was it really intuition? Maybe a part of it was, but definitely not all of it. The reason why Nian Bing made such a decision so quickly was because he had thought through something. When Feng Nu pulled out the blazing heaven sword, the strength of the dou qi emitted from her body was not much weaker than that of Hua Tian. With such a strong dou qi, it would be very easy for her to harm him in such a small space. When a magician fought with a warrior at a close distance, although he could instantly cast some low-level spells, he would definitely not be able to escape. Since she did not do so, it proved many things. This was where the trust came from. Feng Nu smiled, as if she was very happy that Nian Bing trusted her. Thank you. We are already friends, aren't we? The carving will take at least a month. After a month, you can come here again with the blazing stone. I hope that a new godly blade will appear in my hands. If you have something to do and need to leave, I will wait for you here after I finish carving. I will not leave for at least 1 or 2 years. Nian Bing said, I will also stay in Ice Snow City for a period of time. Then let's meet again in a month. I will take my leave first. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing and suddenly said, Eat before you leave. I think you must have not eaten yet. Nian Bing was stunned for a moment. A strange feeling rose in his heart. He nodded and said, Indeed, I have not eaten yet. Jia Ji's death caused him to be heartbroken. Although he controlled his emotions well, he did not have the mood to eat for the entire day. Now that he heard Feng Nu ask, he felt that his stomach was empty. He was indeed a little hungry. Then I will cook a meal for you as a way to thank you. Feng Nu's clear eyes lit up. That's right. How could I forget? You are the successor of the ghost chef. The food you cook must be very delicious. It seems that I am in luck this time. Didn't you just call me by my name? You don't have to call me that again. Her excited appearance did not have the slightest bit of the calm aura from before. She was just like a little girl. When Nian Bing followed Feng Nu to the kitchen of the fake goods ironware shop, he could only smile bitterly. As the saying goes, even the best cook cannot cook without rice. No matter how good a cook is, without ingredients, it would be a waste. In this small kitchen, that was only 4 or 5 square meters, not to mention fresh vegetables and meat, even the only seasoning was salt. Other than rice, there was nothing else that could be eaten. Feng Nu, what do you eat every day? Why is there only rice? Nian Bing asked doubtfully. Feng Nu lowered her head and said somewhat embarrassedly, I eat porridge every day. It was the same when Master was here. Master said that porridge is the best to digest. Sometimes we will buy some vegetables, tear them up and cook them in the porridge. Master said that it is nutritious enough. I finished all the vegetables yesterday. I will go buy some now. What do you need? Only porridge? Nian Bing looked at Feng Nu dumbfoundedly and said with a wry smile, Your life is really simple. No need to buy anything. Let's go out first. The two walked back to the courtyard. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing and said embarrassedly, I wanted to ask you to stay for dinner, but I forgot that there was no food. Sorry. Nian Bing smiled and shook his head. A trace of indescribable pity rose in his heart. It's okay. I have a way. If I can't even overcome this, I am not worthy to be the ghost chef's disciple. As he said that, his eyes looked around and looked up into the sky. Very quickly, he found his target on the wall. A blue light flashed in his eyes and his wrist pointed at the wall. 2 blue lights flashed and disappeared. Suddenly, the 2 pigeons playing on the wall were pierced by the blue light and fell to the ground in the courtyard. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing in shock. You also know martial arts? Why did you kill those 2 pigeons? They are so pitiful. Nian Bing said, I don't know martial arts. That was only a low-level ice magic, the ice arrow technique. I can't kill people, but killing pigeons is not a big problem. Feng knew you have to know that in the eyes of a chef, anything that can be eaten is an ingredient. Since you don't have any ingredients here, I can only make some myself. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing with dissatisfaction. I didn't think that you were such a cruel person. Nian Bing smiled and said, I am cruel? Then you don't have to eat them later. As he said that, he walked to the corner of the wall and picked up the 2 pigeons. After 8 years of cultivation, his mental strength has reached a very high level. The ice arrow he shot earlier directly shattered the 2 pigeons' heads and did not cause them much pain. Holding the 2 pigeons and walking past Feng Nu, Nian Bing looked at her lifeless eyes and smiled. Pigeons are very nutritious and have the effect of strengthening the body and kidney. Since you said that I am cruel, then don't watch how I deal with them. As he said that, he walked directly to the kitchen. No, I want to watch. Feng Nu stubbornly stared at Nian Bing and followed him into the kitchen. Nian Bing took a basin and poured some water. Returning to the courtyard, he quickly removed all the feathers on the pigeons and took out their internal organs and cleaned the pigeons. Looking at the bloody scene in front of her, Feng Nu frowned and reluctantly stayed by Nian Bing's side to continue watching. Nian Bing smiled and flipped his wrist to take out the morning dew dagger. Under the command of his mental strength, his magical power easily froze the blood and internal organs in the basin into ice. Flipping the basin upside down, ice came out of the basin. Nian Bing held the 2 washed pigeons in one hand and softly chanted, Scorching fire, burst forth the passion in your heart and explode between heaven and earth. Bursting flames magic. A solid fireball appeared in front of him. Nian Bing's eyes flashed and the fireball with a diameter of 5 inches exploded. With a bang, the entire piece of blood ice disappeared. Other than a faint flow of water vapor, there was no trace left. Feng Nu stared blankly at Nian Bing. You know 2 types of magic? Ice and fire, how is that possible? Nian Bing smiled and said, There is nothing impossible in this world. As long as you dare to think and dare to do, your fantasy can become reality. When I was learning cooking from my master, I often used this method to destroy garbage. How is it? I didn't leave a trace on the ground, right? Ice and fire will turn into water vapor. When I froze the blood, I had already fused the internal organs of the pigeons with the ice. Under the bombardment of bursting flames, they will naturally disappear. Bursting Flames was a Tier 3 spell that required the strength of an intermediate magician to cast. Its explosive power was extremely strong. Taking the pigeons back to the kitchen, Nian Bing grabbed one of the pigeons by its leg and lifted it up. Because of Nian Bing's cruelty to the pigeons, Feng Nu's good impression of him had dropped a lot. She leaned against the kitchen door and watched what he was going to do. She was surprised to find that Nian Bing seemed to have changed when he held the pigeons in his left hand. He stood there as steady as a boulder. His sharp eyes were completely focused on the pigeons, as if he was observing something. Suddenly, he moved. Feng Nu only saw a cyan blue brilliance floating out. The brilliance was so gorgeous. Nian Bing's right hand was like a phantom, constantly flipping and flashing. One after another, almost identical strands of flesh were piled up on the chopping board below. Although she couldn't see the shadow of the blade, Feng Nu was surprised to find that under the flickering cyan blue brilliance, the pigeons in Nian Bing's hand had gradually turned into skeletons. In just a few blinks of an eye, Nian Bing had already changed to another pigeon. The cyan blue brilliance was still flickering. When the 2 skeletons appeared on the chopping board, there was an even pile of flesh beside them. Nian Bing took out a white handkerchief from his bosom and wrapped it around the blade. Frost swirled on the morning dew dagger, leaving no trace behind. Nian Bing smiled slightly and walked to the stove. He pointed with his left hand and a fireball hit the firewood. The flames started to burn. The pot on the stove was still clean. The 2 pigeon skeletons were directly thrown into the pot. He poured in some water from the side, but just as the water reached the skeletons, he stopped. He closed the lid of the pot and said with a smile, "The original soup melts the original food so that the nutrients can be completely absorbed." Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing with a dumbstruck expression and muttered, "You really don't learn martial arts? Your blade is so fast." She was very clear that although she cultivated Do Qi, the speed of her wrist was definitely not as fast as Nian Bing's. Nian Bing smiled and said, "My blade technique can only cut vegetables and meat. Moreover, it's just a simple blade. It's not like you who cultivated Senior Huatian's 9 abandonment Do Qi. It's a pity that I want to focus on cultivating magic. Otherwise, I might ask you for some knowledge on Do Qi. You only have salt here, so I won't make pigeon stew. I'll make pigeon meat rice for you to eat." As he spoke, he took out a small square cloth pouch from his waist and opened it on the chopping board. Inside the cloth pouch were small pouches. Each pouch was covered with something of different sizes. The largest was a small knife and the smallest was a long needle. There were a total of 10 items, most of which were needle-shaped. Feng Nu curiously asked, "What are these things for? Why do they look like doctors? Could it be that you also know acupuncture?" Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, "Needles are not only used for acupuncture, they are also good for cooking." As he spoke, he took out a basin from the side and scooped up some rice. After washing it with clear water, he placed it beside him. He pinched a grain of rice with his left hand and took out the second thinnest needle from the pouch with his right hand. When the needle entered his hand, the tip of the needle immediately turned red and emitted traces of heat. With a shake of his wrist, the burning red needle of fire magic directly pierced into the grain of rice that he pinched with his left hand. At the same time, with a flick of his left hand's little finger, a tendril of flesh passed through the hole at the end of the needle. Unexpectedly, like a thread, the needle came out from the other end of the rice, and the rice grain was actually pierced by the tendril of flesh. Following this, Nian Bing's movements began to become faster. One grain of rice after another was continuously pierced by the needle, and unexpectedly, the tendril of flesh was cleverly pierced into a string. Miraculously, the astonishment in Feng Nu's eyes became more and more intense. How was this cooking? It was clearly like making a perfect piece of art. The complicated project was continuously performed by Nian Bing. His hands were like illusions, extending and retracting without the slightest delay or mistake. However, even with his speed, when all the tendril of flesh completely pierced through the rice grain, half an hour had already passed. Looking at the rows of rice grains, Nian Bing smiled. This kind of technique of passing rice through the tendril of flesh was completed by him using magic. Without the burning fire needle, it was impossible to pierce through each grain of rice so evenly. The rice grains were like a curtain of beads that were placed flat on the chopping board. Nian Bing turned around and opened the lid of the pot. The soup made from the pigeon bones emitted a faint fragrance amidst the steaming steam. He took a ladle from the side and carefully picked up the 2 sets of pigeon bones from the pot. Looking at the milky white soup, he slightly hesitated for a moment before turning around and muttering a few words. A faint blue light enveloped the rice grains on the chopping board, and unexpectedly, the rice that was pierced by the tendril of flesh was frozen into a block. Taking out the morning dew dagger, he gently picked up the frozen rice and directly placed it into the pot. After sprinkling a thin layer of salt on the ice cubes, he closed the lid of the pot and returned the morning dew dagger to its sheath. Turning around, he said to Feng Nu, who had already fallen into a daze, "All right, it'll be ready to eat in about half an hour. Although the pigeon meat rice tastes good, it's a pity that it's a waste of time. I'll have to trouble you to wait a little longer." Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing with a strange gaze. Are you cooking? If it were an ordinary chef, I'm afraid it wouldn't be finished in a day." Nian Bing couldn't help but laugh. A day? If it took a day, the shredded pigeon meat would already be inedible. Just making it looks good doesn't have any practical significance. You can come to a conclusion after you've tasted it. The two walked out of the kitchen. Feng Nu's previous unhappiness had already vanished into thin air after seeing Nian Bing's miraculous cooking skills. Moving 2 wooden stools, the two sat down in the courtyard. Nian Bing seemed to be a little tired. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the tall ancient tree outside the courtyard wall. Piercing the rice with tendril of flesh required complete concentration. Doing so much at once was like controlling a huge magic spell. Even he himself couldn't explain why he would make such a complicated pigeon meat rice for Feng Nu. Although it sounded simple, the simpler the cooking, the more it showed the chef's skills. Chapter 10. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing from the side. She didn't notice it before, but now she realized that this tall blonde youth was actually so handsome. Although the coarse clothes covered his elegance, the invisible noble temperament was not covered by clothes. Her heart seemed to have skipped a beat. Feng Nu knew that she would never forget Nian Bing's focused expression when he was cooking. She asked softly, "Nian Bing, where are you going after dinner?" Nian Bing did not look at Feng Nu. He was gradually relaxing in the silence. "I will stay in Ice Snow City for a while. My master said that there are 2 restaurants here that have good skills. I want to go there and have a look. Maybe I can learn something." Feng Nu suddenly said, "You are talking about Deshang Pavilion and Qingfeng Zhai, right? The food there is shockingly expensive. I have only heard about it, but I have never been there. However, I believe that they will not be able to make your magical pigeon meat rice. How long are you going to stay here, and where are you going in the future?" When Nian Bing heard Feng Nu's detailed question, he turned his head and looked at her. Feng Nu blushed slightly and quickly said, "I don't mean anything else. Since we are friends, I want to know where I can find you in the future." Nian Bing smiled and said, "I will at least stay in Ice Snow City until you finish making the righteous Yang saber. As for the future, I will probably go to every corner of the continent. 8 years of cooking, 8 years of learning how to cook. The training is over. What I need now is the process of learning. Even I don't know if I can go to the entire continent in 8 years." Feng Nu seemed to have thought of something. Actually, being famous is not necessarily a good thing. Just like my master, the godly forging Huatian, he was so famous. Now, the generals of various countries are proud to have a weapon made by their master. But what happened in the end? Every empire wanted to restrict his master to their own country, forcing him to forge weapons for them. If it wasn't for his fame, his master wouldn't have been reduced to spending his last years in this place. Before Master refined the parting heaven sword, he once told me that no matter what profession, if you want to pursue the peak, you must have a strong backing. Otherwise, it is impossible to do what you want to do. Powerful backing? Nian Bing's heart was moved. She nodded in agreement and said, "Senior Huatian is right. If I can have a strong backing, I can better pursue what I want. No wonder I felt that your Doqi was very strong. It seems that Senior Huatian must have spent a lot of effort on you." Feng Nu smiled and said, "Your magic isn't bad either. Icefire, I really don't know how you practice. Don't these 2 types of magic conflict?" Nian Bing did not want to talk about this problem. He stood up and said, "Maybe. Anyway, I'm only using low-level magic. It won't affect me much." The origin of ice and fire was one of his biggest secrets. Naturally, he would not let others know about it, even if he already had a good impression of the girl in front of him. The 2 of them continued to chat about all sorts of things. Most of them revolved around the interesting things that happened when he was learning from his master. When Nian Bing remembered that the pigeon meat rice was already cooked, the 2 of them felt that it was not enough. "Wow, it's too delicious. It smells so good." When Feng Nu tasted the pigeon meat rice for the first time, her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with appetite. Nian Bing was not familiar with women, but when he saw Feng Nu's crazy speed of eating, he could not help but be stunned. "Nian Bing, why aren't you eating? If you don't eat, I'm going to finish it. Why is your pigeon meat rice so delicious? I think you only added salt." As Feng Nu ate, she did not forget to call out to Nian Bing. Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "I'll eat." The reason why the pigeon meat rice is delicious is because it combines the nutrition of the pigeon with the rice. There's pigeon meat inside and pigeon bone soup on the outside. The two corrode each other, causing the rice to be filled with the fragrance of the pigeon meat. Adding some salt to enhance the taste, of course it's delicious. As he said that, he also started to eat. If he did not eat, he really doubted that he would not be able to eat anymore. The whole pot of rice was finished in the two of them. In total, Nian Bing only ate 30% of it. The remaining 70% went into Feng Nu's stomach. Feng Nu leaned against the back of the chair, slightly panting. Her lips looked more rosy and her charming face was slightly sweaty. "Nian Bing, this is too delicious. This is the first time I've eaten such delicious rice. No wonder Senior Zha's name once shook the world." Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "My surprise is no less than yours. Feng Nu, could it be that all girls can eat so much? You have to know that the rice I cooked was for you to eat for dinner. This was already estimated based on my appetite. I never thought that we would actually finish it all." Feng Nu's charming face turned red. She glared at Nian Bing and said with grievance, "I eat porridge every day. Can't I eat a full meal? Who told you not to say that there was dinner for me here?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "As long as you like it. If a chef's dish is eaten, this is the greatest encouragement to the chef. You are the first person other than Master to eat my food. I have to go. It's getting late. If I don't go to my destination, I'm afraid I will have to sleep in an inn tonight. You ate so much you should rest for a while." "Nian Bing." Feng Nu suddenly called him. Nian Bing had just stood up, and his eyes revealed a questioning look. "Can you come here to visit me often in the future? Master has left, and I am really lonely by myself. Most importantly, after eating your food, I'm afraid that I won't be able to endure just eating porridge in the future." Seeing the tears in Feng Nu's eyes, Nian Bing's heart softened. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will come to visit you when I have nothing to do. I will cook for you." Feng Nu smiled happily, "You have to keep your word. I will wait for you to come." Nian Bing cried out in his heart that he had been tricked. It seemed that the power of beauty was indeed strong. No wonder Master had failed at that time. However, since he had already promised, he had to do it. After all, it was only a month or so. When the Zhengyang saber was ready, he would leave. In the future, it would be better to stay away from women. After finally leaving the shop, Nian Bing let out a sigh of relief. He touched the things that belonged to him. Other than the Zhengyang saber that he had left for Feng Nu, he had brought everything else. Between Deshang Pavilion and Qingfeng Restaurant, which one should he choose? Let's see. Since Master had said that once he showed his culinary skills, he had to leave immediately. Then, he would start from the most basic. Deshang Pavilion and Qingfeng Restaurant were located in the most prosperous area in the center of Ice Snow City. The two restaurants stood across the street, and they had always been each other's biggest competitors. Deshang Pavilion's decoration was extremely gorgeous. Looking at the wide central street of Ice Snow City, it was the most prominent building on the left side of the street. It was 4 stories high, and it occupied an area of tens of thousands of square meters. The whole building was mainly dark red and gold, showing its luxury. The red carpet extended from the inner hall to the door. On both sides of the door, there was a 3-meter-tall stone lion. Above the 5-meter-wide door, there was a golden plaque with 3 big words, Deshang Pavilion. There was a couplet on both sides of the door. On the left was written, Jinhua Yulu Delicious Delicacies. On the right was written, Silver Precious Sweet Spring Delicacies. At the entrance, there were 4 young and beautiful girls in red dresses who were responsible for receiving them. He led the group of luxuriously dressed guests into the hall. This was the favorite place for high-ranking officials and dignitaries. It seemed that this was the only place where they could show off their status. Opposite Deshangxian was the antique Qingfeng. As the name implied, although it was not as luxurious as Deshangxian, it was much more elegant. The three-story building was decorated in cyan, and every place showed its uniqueness and elegance. The horizontal board at the entrance was written with the words Qingfeng written in cyan. At first glance, it was obvious that it was written by a famous artist. The pillars on both sides also had a couplet. On the left side it read, "Chatting and laughing, Confucian tasting green tea," and on the right side it read, "Visiting literati tasting elegant tea." This was the place where literati came. The reason why it could resist Deshangxian was because it was the gathering place of the Magicians' Association. As one of the noblest professions, the Magicians' Association had a transcendent status in any country. The Magicians' Association was even more respected by the royal family of each empire. Although each empire's Magicians' Association did not communicate with each other, they each had a significant influence in their own country. Nian Bing stood in the middle of the street. Looking at Deshangxian on the left and Qingfeng on the right, he couldn't help but feel a little conflicted. Which one should he go to? From his own point of view, he preferred the elegant style of Qingfeng. However, the couplet on the door had already been written, "Chatting and laughing, Confucian tasting elegant tea, visiting literati." Although he couldn't be considered a Confucian, he had only learned to write from his father when he was young. Let alone a Confucian, he couldn't even be considered a Confucian. It seemed that the only way was to go to Deshangxian. Thinking of this, he turned and walked towards Deshangxian on the left side of the street. The 8 young ladies at the entrance of Deshangxian were receiving guests. When Nian Bing walked in front of them, the young ladies were immediately attracted by his handsome face. 16 beautiful gazes were cast on him, causing Nian Bing to feel a little uncomfortable. One of the young ladies saw Nian Bing's awkward appearance and couldn't help but laugh, saying, "Where did this country bumpkin come from? He looks pretty good." Another young lady also opened her mouth, but her words were much more sarcastic. "Yes, he looks really good. There must be many people with that kind of hobby who would like him. It's a pity that this isn't a brothel." Those who could dine at Deshangxian were all high officials and dignitaries. They all wore luxurious clothes. The young ladies at the entrance had already learned to observe people's body language. With one look at Nian Bing's youthful appearance and his attire, they knew that he wasn't a dignitary. Naturally, they opened their mouths to make fun of him. Nian Bing's heart was slightly angry, but he didn't come here to fight. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he said, "May I ask if Deshangxian is hiring a chef? I can make side dishes." The so-called side dishes were to cut the vegetables and match them with the necessary ingredient. Then, they would be given to the chef and the chef would cook the dishes. The first young lady laughed. "So you're actually a chef. I wonder which culinary school you graduated from?" Culinary school? This was the first time Nian Bing heard of this term. Even chefs had schools now? According to his master, they should all be apprentices. The young lady looked at him with disdain and said, "You don't even know about a culinary school and you still want to enter Deshangxian? I think you'd better hurry up and leave. This isn't a place where just anyone can enter." Just as Nian Bing was at a loss for what to do, a person walked out of the Great Accomplishment Pavilion. This person was tall and seemed to be in his 40s. He had a fierce look on his face and gave off a savage vibe. He wore a purple satin robe and held a fan in his right hand. He knocked on his left palm. The fan was very large and was about 1 foot and 5 inches long. From the way he knocked on it, it was obvious that the fan was quite heavy and definitely not made of wood. As soon as he walked out, he saw Nian Bing. He walked over and asked, "What's the matter?" The 8 young ladies who were originally smiling immediately stood in their positions when they saw this middle-aged man. The smile on their faces disappeared. The young lady who spoke to Nian Bing said, "Third shopkeeper, this person wants to work here, but he doesn't even know about a culinary school. I'm just telling him to leave." The middle-aged man glanced at Nian Bing and said impatiently, "Quickly scram, scram. Don't be an eyesore to the master. A pauper like you doesn't even deserve to clean my shoes." Nian Bing's eyes flashed coldly. Just as she was about to explode, she heard a clear voice behind her. "Yo, third shopkeeper Liao is starting to show off again. I don't know when this lazy dog Liao started wearing shoes." Nian Bing turned around and saw a young lady riding a tall horse not far behind her. The horse was very tall, just like the war horses of the Silver Feather Cavalry. It was snow-white without a single strand of mixed hair. The young lady on the horse was wearing a red shirt and pants. Her figure was slender and fit, and there was a heroic spirit between her eyebrows. A red scabbard sword hung at her waist. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Feng knew, she gave people a lively sense of beauty. Her long brown hair flowed down her back, and her red shirt and white horse made for a beautiful scene on Central Street. Hearing the young lady's mockery, third shopkeeper Liao was furious. He stood in place and said hatefully, "Xuejing, don't think I won't dare to do anything to you just because your father is backing you up." Xuejing jumped down from the horse and walked to Nian Bing's side. She looked at third shopkeeper Liao and smiled. "Is that so? Then come at me. I'd like to see what you can do to me. I wonder who was the one who fell flat on his face last time. De Shang Xian, humph, I spit on you." Third shopkeeper Liao was obviously very wary of the young lady Xuejing. Although his ugly face was red with anger, he didn't dare to do anything. Looking around, he suddenly found a target to vent his anger on. He slapped Nianbing's shoulder with the fan in his hand. "Little bastard, why aren't you scramming?" Nianbing's heart was already filled with hatred. Seeing the wind caused by third shopkeeper Liao's fan, he knew very well that if he were to be hit, his shoulder blade would probably shatter. However, the scheming third shopkeeper Liao didn't flare up at this time. With a cry of pain, he staggered behind the young lady in red. The young lady shook her wrist and a red streak of dough qi shot out. With a bang, third shopkeeper Liao staggered back a few steps and almost fell to the ground. Xuejing snorted disdainfully. "Mangy dog wants to bite again. If I don't teach you a lesson today, my name isn't Xuejing. Miss Xue, for my sake, let it go." A loud voice suddenly rang out, and another person walked out from the Great Accomplishment Pavilion. This person looked to be in his 50s, and he was short and fat. He wore a golden robe with golden flowers embroidered on it. His face was full of fat, and his small eyes shone with a bright light as they opened and closed. "Boss, Xuejing is causing trouble in front of our door again. You have to teach her a lesson." Third shopkeeper Liao anxiously asked Fatso for help. Fatso frowned and slapped the shopkeeper, causing him to stagger. He said coldly, "Scram, haven't you embarrassed yourself enough?" Third shopkeeper Liao's expression changed slightly, but he didn't dare to say anything else. He returned to De Shang Xian dejectedly. As soon as he left, Fatso's face was full of smiles. The fat on his face trembled as he smiled. "Miss Xue, our De Shang Xian and your Breeze sect have always minded our own business. Let's just be friendly and make money." Xuejing sneered. "So it's head shopkeeper Liao. Fine, even if you hit a dog, you have to show some respect to its master. I'll let it go this time. Make sure third shopkeeper Liao remembers this. If he sees you bullying people again, humph." Just as she was about to turn and leave, she saw Nian Bing behind her. Seeing the panic on his face, Xuejing said unhappily, "Look at how big you are. You really are a piece of trash. Men these days." Nian Bing originally had a good impression of Xuejing. However, when he heard her domineering words, his impression of her immediately dropped. Just as he was about to say something, Xuejing continued, "You're looking for a job, right? Come with me. Our Cool Breeze sect is lacking someone to chop firewood." With that said, she went over to lead her white horse and walked towards the side door of the Cool Breeze sect. Chop firewood? No way, after chopping firewood for so many years, why would he still chop firewood? Nian Bing couldn't help but smile bitterly. Although he was tired of chopping firewood, if he wanted to enter the Breeze sect without showing his cooking skills, he was afraid that this was the only way. Helplessly, he followed Xue Jing into the Cool Breeze cell through the side door. As soon as they entered the side door, Nian Bing immediately smelled a faint fragrance. It was the smell of plants, and the air seemed to be much fresher. Looking around, other than a stone path, the surroundings were green. In the green, there was a small lake. The lake wasn't big, only 300 or 400 square meters. Above it was a winding corridor, and 4 pavilions sat in a crisscrossing position. It was a unique place with a strong sense of elegance. "Hey, what are you looking at? Let's go quickly," Xuejing impatiently said to Nianbing. Only now did she see Nianbing's appearance clearly. She thought to herself, he is handsome, but he doesn't have any skills. The heavens have given him this kind of appearance, it's really a waste. 2 black-clothed servants came over. One of them took the reins from Xuejing's hands and respectfully said, "Young miss, you're back. Great magician Long Ling has been waiting for you for a long time." "Big sister Ling is here? That's great, I was just about to find her. Where is she?" Xuejing's face revealed an excited glow. The servant said, "Great magician Long Ling is at the Embracing Moon Pavilion." "All right, I'll go now." "Oh, that's right, I saved this person from the street. Have him chop firewood in the firewood room, I remember there's a lack of people there." "Yes, young miss." Xuejing quickly ran off, passing through the corridor and disappearing in the blink of an eye. One of the servants led her horse away, while the other servant said to Nianbing, "Come with me." Nianbing agreed and followed the black-clothed servant through the small stone building, heading into the depths of the clear wind house. The further in he went, the more he was infected by the elegant atmosphere. Every layout showed the owner's ingenuity. The arrangement of the pavilions gave people a kind of simple and elegant beauty. The servant led Nianbing out of the front yard and to the side of the house. He walked to the door of the innermost room and respectfully said, "Chief Steward, are you here?" A clear voice sounded, "Come in." The servant gave Nianbing a look and let him in. The interior of the room was very clean. There were 2 suites, one inside and one outside. He couldn't see what was inside, but the one outside was filled with a scholarly atmosphere. There were a few calligraphy pieces hanging on the wall, and all kinds of stationery were placed on the wide carved wooden table. Behind the table sat a man who looked to be in his 30s. He was wearing a white robe, and his head was lowered as he wrote something. Although only the side of his face could be seen, Nianbing was surprised to find that although this person's appearance was ordinary, he had a special aura. There was a noble aura in his simple elegance. "Chief Steward, the Clear Wind House's Chief Steward?" The servant said to the middle-aged man. "Chief Steward, the young miss brought this person in and said that she wanted him to help out in the firewood room, so I brought him here for you to register." The man in white raised his head and Nianbing looked at him. When their eyes met, Nianbing saw the word wisdom in his bright eyes. She thought to herself that this person was definitely not easy to deal with. The man in white was slightly surprised when he saw Nianbing's handsome appearance and tall figure. He asked, "What's your name? Where are you from? What do you know?" Nianbing said, "My name is Nianbing. My ancestral home is in the Huarong Empire. I learned how to cook for a while." The man in white smiled slightly and said, "Then have you gone to a cooking school?" Cooking school again. If there was a chance, she really wanted to go and see what this school taught. Shaking her head, Nianbing said honestly, "I haven't." The man in white said, "Shao Si, take him to get a set of clothes. As the young miss said, let him work in the firewood room first. If he does well, we can consider training him to be a low-level chef." Shao Si respectfully said, "Yes, Chief Steward. Come with me." After Nianbing changed into the green clothes that Shao Si found for her, she was brought to a small courtyard in the backyard. There was a lot of wood in the small courtyard. Some of it had already been chopped and was neatly piled together. There was even a shed above the pile of wood to prevent the wood from getting wet. As soon as Xiao Si entered the small courtyard, he shouted, Uncle Li, I've brought you a new person. A loud voice rang out, a new person has come. That's good, my old bones can finally relax a little. The person who came with the voice was also wearing green clothes. He was an old man in his 50s. There weren't many wrinkles on his face. He was tall and carried an axe in his hand. His appearance was ordinary, and he had a smile on his face. He looked very easy to get along with at first glance. Uncle Li's gaze fell on Yanbing. He looked him up and down a few times, and, your body seems to be in good shape. I just don't know if you can take any hardships. All the firewood used in the entire Clear Wind restaurant was chopped by me. Kid, if you can't finish your work, you'll have to work overtime. Yanbing smiled and said, Hello Uncle Li, I came from a poor background. There's no problem with working. Don't worry. Uncle Li smiled and said, That's good. Xiao Si, you can go back. Leave him to me. Now that we have a new person, I won't have to find others to help me in the future. With the two of us working together, we should be able to provide for the kitchen. Come, I'll take you to your room first. After Xiao Si left, Yanbing followed Uncle Li to a room in the corner of the small courtyard. There were 3 rooms here. Uncle Li said, Originally, chopping firewood was supposed to be done by 3 people, but ever since De Qing Xian opened, they took away a portion of our business. So I'm the only one taking care of it. When I'm too busy, I'll find others to help. You can stay in the room on the right. The room in the middle is a little dirty and not easy to clean. Even a chopper had his own room. This Clear Wind restaurant was really doing well. Yanbing thought as he walked to the room on the right. He put down his bag and immediately walked out. Uncle Li was waiting for him at the door. Kid, have you chopped firewood before? Yanbing nodded. When it came to chopping firewood, he could be considered a veteran. Uncle Li smiled and said, Don't worry, I won't bully a new person. In the future, we'll split the work equally. Our Clear Wind restaurant is also very particular about chopping firewood. The wood will be delivered to us, so we have to split it evenly. Look, just like that. As he spoke, he pointed to the pile of wood on the side. I'll finish today's work. You can watch from the side. From tomorrow onwards, you'll have to help me share the burden. Oh right, what's your name? Who recruited you? Yanbing briefly recounted everything that happened on the street. After listening to his narration, Uncle Li smiled and said, Although Miss has a bad temper, she has a very good heart. Don't worry, although we're only choppers, we're treated well. Food and lodging are taken care of, and we even have an income of 1 gold coin every month. It can be said that we're the happiest choppers. Moreover, our time can be considered free. As long as we finish chopping the firewood we need every day, we can move freely. We can even go out the back door and walk around. Yanbing listened to Uncle Li's introduction of Clear Wind Restaurant while observing the surrounding scenery. With Uncle Li's introduction, he gradually had a general impression of this place. Clear Wind Restaurant's area was not smaller than Great Accomplishment Pavilion, but because of the various elegant scenery, the number of guests that could be accommodated was much less than Great Accomplishment Pavilion. Not far from the firewood room was the kitchen. Every day there would be people from the kitchen who would come here to collect firewood. Only when it was time to eat could they see the chef. According to Uncle Li, the food in Clear Wind Restaurant was very good. Although the food that the servants ate was cooked by the low-level chefs, there were still vegetables and meat. It was very good. Uncle Li, let me chop. You rest for a while. Yanbing took the axe from Uncle Li's hand and took a piece of wood. He tried to slow down as much as possible. After a few times, 8 pieces of firewood of the same size appeared. Uncle Li praised, Sure enough, you have done it before. Yanbing, seeing how skilled you are, you should have chopped for a long time. Miss really found me a good helper this time. With Yanbing's help, he was happy to be idle and talk more. Yanbing smiled bitterly and said, counting, I have chopped firewood for 8 years. Uncle Lee, I just heard Little Four and the others say to Miss that there is a great magician called Long Ling who came to find her. A great magician is very powerful, right? Uncle Lee nodded sincerely and said, Of course she is very powerful. She is not just a little powerful. Our Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Union set up in Ice Snow City in order to give up the position of the Ice God Tower. I heard that Miss Long Ling is the daughter of the Union's president. She has reached the realm of great magician at such a young age. She is our Miss Best Friend. The news that the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Union set up in Ice Snow City was very useful to Nian Bing. Although he didn't know what level his magic had reached, he should be close to the realm of great magician. What he lacked the most now was ice magic books. Magic incantations were very important. No matter how high his magic power was, without an incantation, it would be useless. Although he guessed some ice magic incantations based on the fire magic incantations, the incantations above level 3 all had their own characteristic. Having ice magic power without an incantation was not a comfortable feeling. If he could go to the Magicians' Union and look at the magic books, it would be very helpful to him. With the help of Nian Bing, it didn't take too long for today's firewood chopping task to be completed. When Uncle Lee was chopping firewood earlier, Nian Bing had carefully observed his chopping speed. Therefore, when he chopped firewood, he only maintained the same speed as him. Although the firewood was evenly chopped, he didn't pursue perfection like when he was in the peach blossom forest. When he chopped half of the firewood, 2 people in white chef's clothes came and took away part of the firewood. Uncle Lee laughed and said, It's different with you around. You are really a diligent young man. Your chopping speed is about the same as mine. It's not early anymore. It's almost time for dinner. Nian Bing said, Uncle Lee, I won't be eating here today. I just arrived at Ice Snow City and want to go out for a walk. I also want to buy some daily necessities. Uncle Lee was a straightforward person. He didn't ask much. He told Nian Bing where the back door was and let him go. After leaving the breeze house, Nian Bing's eyes flashed. Since he already knew that the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Union was here, he should go and have a look. At least, he should ask what conditions he needed to be able to read the information there. Thinking of this, he walked along the main road. He randomly asked a person and found the location of the Magicians' Union. Chapter 11. The Sorcerers' Guild was in the southern part of the city, while the Breeze sect was in the center of the city. Nian Bing identified the general direction and slowly walked. At this time, the sky was gradually darkening, and evening was coming. Because he couldn't use magic, his speed was no different from ordinary people. After walking for a full hour, he saw a tall building not far away. It was a building that looked like a steeple, and its height was even higher than the Deshang Pavilion. The steeple of the building looked very special, and on the side facing the street, there was a huge golden hexagram symbol. Needless to say, this was the place he was looking for. Thinking of this, Nian Bing quickened his pace and walked in the direction of the Sorcerers' Guild. At this time, the sound of a horse's hooves suddenly came from behind. Judging from the sound, the horse's speed wasn't fast, but it was very rhythmic. The crisp sound of hooves on the ground was like music. When he was young, Nian Bing once heard his father say that only the best horses had a fixed rhythm when they gallop. Curiously looking back, he saw a girl riding a tall red horse coming in his direction. The girl on the horse was wearing a blue magic robe without any embroidery. Her long purple hair was neatly combed behind her back. She was very beautiful. Nian Bing secretly compared her with Feng Nu. He was surprised to find that this girl, who looked a little weak, was not inferior to Feng Nu. Her big black eyes were looking in the direction of the Sorcerers' Guild, and she revealed a gentle smile. Many passers-by on both sides seemed to know her, and they smiled and made way for her. Although the girl's horse was not fast, it was still faster than Nian Bing's walking. She arrived at the Sorcerers' Guild before him. She jumped off the horse, and a man wearing a yellow magic robe came out from the guild. He helped her hold the horse and said kindly, "Ling-er, you're finally back. Why were you gone for so long?" Ling-er smiled gently and said, "Xuejing asked me to stay for dinner. Senior brother, you know that I have always liked the food at the Breeze sect, so I came back a little late. Have you eaten?" The man smiled and said, "I've already eaten. Let's go in." When Yen Bing heard the two words Ling-er, her heart suddenly moved. Could it be that this young girl was the great magician Long Ling that Miss Xuejing had an appointment with? Looking at her appearance, her temperament was completely different from Xuejing's. Their names should be changed. Since she was the daughter of the president of the Magic Guild, it should be easier to get an answer from her. Thinking of this, he quickly stepped forward. Taking advantage of the fact that Long Ling-er had not yet entered the Union, he ran in front of them and asked, "Excuse me, is this the headquarters of the Magicians' Union?" Long Ling looked at Nianbing curiously. Seeing him in such a hurry, she couldn't help but smile. The man glanced at Nianbing and proudly said, "That's right, this is the Magicians' Union. What do you want?" Nianbing said, "I want to ask, what are the conditions to be able to read the magic books in the Union?" The man frowned and said, "That can only be read by people in the Union. Moreover, it has to be based on your own rank. You can't skip ranks to read the information in the Union. Could it be that you are a magician?" Nianbing quickly nodded and said, "Yes, I am an ice magician. I don't know if I can enter the Union to read it." He was already familiar with fire magic as a rank 8 magician. Rank 8 magician needed to be an experienced mage to use it. What he needed the most right now was ice magic spells, so he naturally said that he was an ice magician. When the man heard Nianbing say that he was an ice magician, the expression on his face eased a bit. "Then have you ever joined a union in another country? If you have, we don't welcome you here. Otherwise, you can come to the union to take a test. According to your test results, the union will give you a corresponding mark. However, looking at your appearance, even if you are a magician, your level shouldn't be too high." Although the man's words were a bit harsh, but what he said was indeed the truth. Being a magician was a very expensive profession, especially in the early stages. If one didn't have the help of good gems, it would be very difficult to feel the existence of magic elements. And the price of gems, no matter which country in the Yangon continent, was always high. It was simply not something that ordinary people could afford. Moreover, practicing magic required the guidance of a teacher. If there was no teacher, it would be very difficult to achieve anything. Therefore, it was no wonder that this man had some doubts. Nianbing didn't care whether she joined a union or not. As long as she could learn the magic spells she needed, it was enough. She quickly said, "I haven't joined any union yet. Can I trouble you to take me in for a test? If possible, I am very willing to join the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians' Union." The man glanced at Long Ling, who was beside him. Long Ling was also looking at him. "Senior brother, please help him. Looking at his appearance, he should be from another country. Now that there are fewer and fewer people in the Union, we also need to recruit more fresh blood. Several elders in the Union are here. If he has good potential, perhaps we can increase our strength." The man nodded and said, "But it's already a bit late today. I think, let's talk about it tomorrow. Young man, come back tomorrow morning." Nianbing thought that she still had to stay in the Breeze sect tomorrow. She should also explore the specialty dishes of the Breeze sect, so she didn't have much time. She couldn't help but say to the man, "Respected great magician, can you make an exception? I have some things to do during the day tomorrow, but I happen to have some free time now." Although the man was Long Ling-er's senior brother, he was only an earth element adept mage due to his limited aptitude. He hadn't reached the realm of a great mage yet. When he heard Nianbing call him a great mage, his mood immediately improved. He thought to himself, "My junior sister likes to help others. If I help this kid this time, my junior sister might have a better impression of me." When he thought of that, a faint smile appeared on his face. He said, "Seeing as you're not from here, I'll make an exception. Come with us." Long Ling smiled and said, "Senior brother, I know you are the best." Being praised by his beloved junior sister, the man's mood immediately improved. He smiled at Long Ling and led the horse inside. Nian Bing gave a grateful look to Long Ling and hurriedly followed the two into the Magician's Guild. The huge building outside the Magician's Guild was only the surface. After passing through the gate, there was an open space like a field. The surrounding buildings were closely connected with each other. The area was so large that even the Great Accomplishment Pavilion and the Breeze Sect couldn't compare to it. It was worthy of being the Ice Moon Empire's Magician's Guild. After the man handed Long Ling's horse to a servant, he and Long Ling led Nian Bing into a building on the left. As they walked, he asked Nian Bing, "What's your name? What realm have you reached in ice magic?" Nian Bing hurriedly replied, "My name is Nian Bing. I have always been practicing by myself. I don't know what realm I have reached. I haven't asked for your name yet, great magician." The man said indifferently, "My name is Sergio. This is a testing area. According to the guild's regulations, any magician's test must be carried out by an elder of the Archmage rank. You wait here for a moment. I will go and see if the elders have entered meditation. If they have already started meditating, they cannot be disturbed. You can only come back tomorrow." After saying that, he said something to Long Ling and turned around to walk through a side door. Long Ling smiled faintly and said, "Although senior brother's temper is a bit eccentric, he has a very good heart. If my words have offended you, I still have to ask for your forgiveness." While saying that, she continued to lead him inside. Listening to Long Ling's soft and gentle words, Nian Bing's heart was particularly comfortable. She felt that she was much easier to get along with than Xu Edging. She smiled and said, "Great magician, you don't have to be polite. This time, I have really troubled you. Although I have always been practicing magic, I have always been unable to grasp the essentials. Therefore, this time I wanted to learn some things in the guild. If there is an opportunity, I would like to ask for your guidance." Long Ling smiled faintly and said, "I don't dare to give you guidance. You also don't have to call me great magician. I still haven't taken the advancement test. This is my father's request. He said that anyone under his tutelage who hasn't reached the realm of great magician is not allowed to take the test and wear a symbol to avoid losing face for him. My father is very powerful. If you pass the test, I can introduce you to him. In the future, you can just call me by my name. My name is Long Ling. Everyone calls me Ling. Speaking of which, I am the same as you. We are both ice magicians. Why don't you have a magic robe? If you don't wear a magic robe, how can it represent your identity as a magician?" Nian Bing pretended to have a bitter look and said, "Since I was young, I wanted to become a magician. But my family was too poor, so I could only find opportunities to learn by myself. Previously, I accidentally met a magician. He said that I have an ice attribute physique, so he taught me a meditation method. I practiced according to his method. Later on, I really did have magic power. But that magician only taught me meditation and didn't teach me incantations. Therefore, until now, I only know some of the lowest level ice magic." At this time, they had already passed through 2 doors and came to a hall. Because the building had a pointed roof, the hall was very tall. The area was about 200 square meters. There were all kinds of murals on the walls. On the murals there were all kinds of pictures. Most of them were magicians wearing magic robes and some magic items. In the center of the hall there was a circle with a diameter of 5 meters. There was a 6-pointed star in the center of the circle. The 6 points of the 6-pointed star were white, blue, red, green, yellow, and gold. These 6 colors symbolized the 6 most mainstream types of magic. Long Ling heard Nian Bing's words. Her eyes immediately showed sympathy. She comforted him and said, "It doesn't matter. As a magician, Relying on meditation to cultivate magic power is the most important. Magic power is the foundation of all magic. As long as your magic power is strong enough, coupled with incantations, you will naturally be able to use higher-level magic. As for the magic robe, you don't have to worry. After passing the test, we will naturally give you one here. However, you must be at least an intermediate magician to be able to join our guild. Otherwise, you can only continue to cultivate on your own. Nian Bing nodded. In his heart, he thought that he was at least an advanced magician. Even if he didn't have any advanced ice spells, he still knew 1 or 2 4th-level ice spells. Passing the test shouldn't be a big problem. Miss Ling, I really have to thank you. If I didn't meet you and your senior, I really wouldn't know how to enter the Magician's Guild. Long Ling smiled and said, There is nothing to thank. Even if you didn't meet us after entering the guild, as long as you show your identity as a magician, there will naturally be people to receive you. Later on, you have to work hard. During the test, no one can help you. Everything depends on your own strength. Nian Bing firmly nodded and said, I will definitely pass the test. Just at this moment, the sound of footsteps was heard. Nian Bing and Long Ling both looked behind them and saw Shiju walking in with an old man wearing a blue magician's robe. That old man had snow-white hair and looked to be at least 60 or 70 years old. There was a symbol embroidered on the left side of his chest. Nian Bing couldn't be more familiar with this symbol. It was the same symbol as her father's sorcerer symbol. Very clearly, he was either a water or ice sorcerer. Shiju took the lead and walked to Nian Bing's side saying, Your luck is really not bad. Today, Teacher Li Hua hasn't entered meditation yet. He is a water sorcerer. Why haven't you hurriedly saluted him? In the field of magicians, status was extremely important. As long as there was a difference in level, one must bow and salute. Nian Bing had long heard her father mention this point. Towards the strong, he had absolute respect. She hurriedly bowed to the old man and said, Greetings, respected sorcerer. The old man didn't seem to like to talk much. He only made a sound of N, indicating that he agreed. Shiju respectfully said to the old sorcerer, Teacher Li Hua, can we begin now? The old man looked up and down at Nian Bing and extended his hand to Nian Bing, saying, Stimulate your magic and use your strongest power to transfer it to me. I must first know what level your magic has reached. Nian Bing agreed. He reached out his right hand and grabbed the old magician's withered hand. He carefully controlled the ice magic in his body to separate from the vortex of ice and fire, and attacked the old magician. She didn't want others to know that she had 2 types of magic at the same time, so when she attacked with her ice magic, she tried to restrain her fire magic as much as possible to avoid being detected by the other party. Under the influence of her mental strength, the ice magic was transmitted through her arm and rushed to the sorcerer. When Nian Bing's magic moved to her arm, because her magic was always rotating, it had a very strong suction force on the magic elements in the air. Naturally, it attracted the ice elements in the air to attack Li Hua. Blue light was emitted from Nian Bing's body. Just the release of magic light was enough to prove that she had at least the strength of an intermediate sorcerer. Li Hua's half-closed eyes suddenly opened and looked at Nian Bing with some surprise. Feeling the magic from his hand continuously rushing to him, the surprise in his eyes became more and more intense. He clearly discovered that the young man in front of him, who looked about the same age as Longer, was transmitting an exceptionally pure magical power without a trace of impurities. What was even more precious was that his magical power was very condensed. After it was transmitted into his body, his own water magical power actually had a very difficult time dispelling the condensed icy aura. Moreover, when the ice magical power was transmitted, it was actually slightly rotating like an endless river. With his own strength as a magic shooter, it was somewhat strenuous to resist this peculiar ice magical power. Okay. Li Hua suddenly opened his mouth, and his right hand shook slightly. Nian Bing only felt a gentle airflow like a wave, pushing her hand away from Li Hua's hand. Li Hua frowned slightly and looked at her, saying, "Tell me, who is your teacher?" Nian Bing lowered her head and said, "Honorable sorcerer, I don't have a teacher. I only learned to meditate from an unknown sorcerer. After that, I have been relying on myself to practice. Do you think I can pass the test?" Li Hua's eyes showed a strange light and said, "Whether you can pass the test or not depends on your performance. Now you can use the magic you are most proud of, which is the highest level magic, to attack me. You have to remember that magic control is a very important part of magic. If you can only release magic but can't control it effectively, then you can't be a qualified sorcerer." Besides her father, this was the first time that Nian Bing had been instructed by another sorcerer. She nodded quickly. She didn't dare to use the Stone of Ice Goddess, so she just raised her hand and chanted loudly, "Great Ice Goddess, please lend me your anger and send us to the lost shore." Hearing her spell, Li Hua didn't show any expression, but Long Ling and Shurjiu were surprised. Long Ling whispered to Shurjiu, "Senior, this should be the spell of Blizzard. Blizzard is a grade 4 ice spell that covers a large area. I've only mastered it not long ago. Since he can use this spell, his magic power shouldn't be below mine. It seems that we were right to let him in for the test." Shurjiu's expression was a little ugly. He snorted and said, "That depends on whether or not he can really use this magic. Who knows, maybe he's just trying to force himself to chant the incantation. What's the use of just looking good?" Under the effect of the spell, the temperature in the air suddenly dropped sharply. Clear blue light spots constantly condensed on Nianbing's body. Although he didn't use the Sai of the Ice Goddess, which could be used as a magic wand, he had been practicing with the Stone of Ice Goddess for many years. He had long been connected with the Stone of Ice Goddess. Although he didn't use it directly, the effect was only a little less. The blue light spots floated around Nianbing's body. The light flashed one after another, and the blue light spots began to spin around Nianbing's body quickly. Blizzard was the level 4 ice magic that Nianbing was best at, because when the blizzard was spinning, it was secretly connected to the magic power of ice and fire in his body. In the process of using it, he could save some magic power. Snowflakes appeared one after another. Li Hua's face also became serious. Feeling the surrounding temperature, he took out a small magic wand that was only 8 inches long. In a low voice, he chanted a few words. Suddenly, a watery ripple appeared in front of him. This was not a simple water wall spell, but an advanced version of it. It had reached the level 5 single-target defensive water magic, water mirror spell. Not only could it have a very good defensive effect, but it could also, to a certain extent, counterattack the opponent's magic. The blizzard was finally formed. It spun quickly around Nianbing's body. The spinning speed was getting faster and faster. Gradually, his figure could not be seen. Nianbing's eyes shone with blue light. The blizzard condensed into a small tornado that flew close to the ground and flew towards Li Hua. Seeing this, Shurjiu, who was at the side, said disdainfully, "Junior sister, what did I say? The snowstorm is only so small. Can it be called a snowstorm?" Long Ling's eyes showed a strange expression. "No, senior brother, you're wrong. Father once said that the blizzard spell can not only attack a large area and allow the ice magician to fly for a short period of time. If the magician's magic power reaches a certain level and he has good control of his magic, then it can be used as a single-target attack spell. Using the blizzard spell as a single-target attack, then its true power can be displayed. Father told me that when I can reach such a level, then I can continue to advance in the direction of an archmage." Looking at the blizzard that had condensed into such a large area, Li Hua's expression changed several times. He waved the magic wand in his hand and chanted a few words. 2 more water mirror spells blocked in front of him. Seeing that the blizzard that Nianbing had condensed was about to reach Li Hua, it suddenly stopped in its tracks. Just as the other three magicians present were in a state of shock, the blizzard suddenly rose into the air. The entire whirlpool was horizontal like a huge whip. From top to bottom, it lashed towards Li Hua's position. After all, Li Hua had been immersed in magic for many years. In the face of chaos, he was not flustered. He took a step forward and pointed the magic wand in his hand upwards. He forcibly raised the 3 water mirror spells in front of him above his head and welcomed the attack of the blizzard. Nian Bing's blizzard spell, which had the same source of ice and fire, was like a sharp blade. The mirrors could reflect light and even energy. However, when faced with a sharp blade, they could only meet force with force. The ear-piercing sound of friction rang out continuously. The first water mirror was quickly destroyed by the rapid rotation of the blizzard, followed by the second. When the blizzard reached Li Hua's final line of defense, it did not weaken. Other than the thinning of the snowflakes, its attack power did not decrease in the slightest. The hurricane filled the entire hall, forcing Shurjiu and Long Ling to retreat to the edge of the hall and release their own defensive spells. At this moment, Nian Bing had already raised her magic to the limit. Li Hua's eyes shone brightly. His body suddenly became distorted. When the last water mirror was destroyed by Nian Bing's powerful blizzard, his body suddenly burrowed directly into the blizzard. Under everyone's shocked gasps, blue waves suddenly flashed. Nian Bing's entire body shook. She was pulled back a few steps and almost fell to the ground. The blizzard also disappeared in silence amidst the wave. In the entire hall, other than the extremely low temperature, everything else returned to normal. Li Hua's body appeared not too far away from Nian Bing. He seemed to be deep in thought as he said, "A Tier 4 spell can actually force me to use a Tier 7 spell, Water Melting Sky. Kid, your control over magic is almost on par with mine. It's a pity that your magic is only at the level of a Grand Mage." Long Ling, who was at the side, said in surprise, "Uncle Li Hua, you're saying that he's a Grand Mage?" Li Hua nodded and said, "Other than you, this is the first time I've seen such a talented child. It's not easy for such a young age to cultivate magic to such a level. His level of magic is about the same as yours, but his control of magic is much better than yours. It's obvious that his spiritual power is very strong. It's almost at the level of a sorcerer. You can give him the title of a Grand Mage. The reason why your father didn't let you take the test is because your control of magic is not enough. In the future, you have to work harder in this area and strive to become a Grand Mage as soon as possible. Child, how old are you?" The last sentence was asked by Nianbing. His tone was much gentler. Nianbing had used a lot of ice magic, but his spiritual power was strong, and he had the support of the same source of ice and fire, so he didn't feel much discomfort. He respectfully said, "Honorable sorcerer, I'm 18 years old this year." Li Hua's eyes flashed. 18 years old. That means you're 1 year younger than Ling. It seems that I can only describe you as a genius. Ling also barely entered the realm of a Grand Mage after she was 19 years old, but you're even younger. An 18-year-old Grand Mage, ha 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 ha. It seems that our Ice Moon Mage Guild will have another new talent. Come again tomorrow. I think the president will be very happy to see a genius like you. Although Nianbing wanted to read the books on ice magic spells tonight, he also knew that he couldn't be too hasty at this time. He respectfully saluted Li Hua and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you." To the side, Shurjiu's expression changed, and his eyes flickered with light. He had never thought that this youth in plain clothes would actually have the strength of a Grand Magus, and was even stronger than Long Ling, who had always been called a genius. The jealousy in his heart made his face ashen, and he couldn't say anything. At this time, Nianbing turned to Shurjiu and Long Ling and said, "Thank you for your help. I'll come again tomorrow." After saying that, he smiled at the two of them and turned to walk outside. Long Ling looked at Nianbing's figure from behind, and a strange feeling suddenly rose in her heart. Ever since she was young, She had always been the princess of the Magicians' Guild and was hailed as a magical genius. She had never thought that a plainly dressed youth would actually be stronger than her in terms of magical cultivation. She didn't feel jealous because of this. Instead, she was very curious about Nianbing. She was curious about how he cultivated to this level. Long Ling could be said to have grown up in magic gems. Her father, in order to let her understand the true essence of magic faster, began to teach her magic when she was 5 years old. Although she was only 19 years old now, she already had 14 years of magic cultivation. In addition to her extremely high perception, she had her current achievement. Ling, are you very surprised? You have to understand that there is always someone better than you. Li Hua looked at Long Ling and said with deep meaning in his eyes. Long Ling nodded and said, "That snowstorm he used just now was really powerful. I've only heard of it from my father before, but I never thought that a snowstorm used for short distance flying could have such a strong attack power. Uncle Li Hua, your magic seems to have reached its peak again. Just now, I didn't even see you chant an incantation, and you used a 7th level spell. I don't know when Ling will reach this level." Li Hua smiled bitterly and said, "Are you mocking me? Not to mention me, even your father can't use a 7th level spell without chanting an incantation. I was too careless and only used a low-level spell to defend myself. By the time I reacted, it was too late to chant an incantation, so I could only use a 7th level scroll. Sigh. That scroll of mine took a lot of time and your father's help to complete. If I were to sell it, it would be worth at least 100 purple coins. It's a situation where there is demand but no supply. I'll go find your father now and tell him about this." Shi Jiu said with some dissatisfaction, "Teacher Li Hua, is it that important? Maybe that boy also used a scroll just now?" Li Hua said indifferently, "If I can't even tell if he used a scroll or not, then I can't call myself a sorcerer. Magic can be activated with a scroll, but magic control can't be faked. If I give you a snowstorm scroll, can you control it like he did just now? Not only can he gather the snowstorm so densely, but he can also control it to suddenly change its direction. Although it's not very skillful, but even an ice sorcerer can only control it so well. His control over magic is so strong that it's much better than any of the great magicians on the continent. I really don't know how he trained at such a young age." After saying this, he looked at Shi Jiu with deep meaning in his eyes, then turned and left. Li Hua left, and Long Ling woke up from her previous surprise. She muttered, "Uncle Li Hua hasn't smiled for a long time. During the test just now, he actually smiled." Shi Jiu said unhappily, "I think Teacher Li Hua is a little. Forget it, let's not care about him. Junior sister, let's go. How about I accompany you for supper?" Long Ling shook her head and said, "No, senior brother. Today I realized that in the practice of magic I'm still so far behind. I don't have any advantage among my peers. I want to seize the opportunity to practice and strive to catch up with Nianbing as soon as possible. You should practice more too. See you tomorrow. I don't know what father will do when he sees Nianbing tomorrow." After saying this, she bid farewell to Shi Jiu and fluttered away. Chapter 12. Shi Jiu looked at Long Ling's disappearing silhouette with infatuation, but in his heart, he was secretly thinking of a countermeasure. He was nearly 10 years older than Long Ling and had practically watched Long Ling grow up. Since young, his heart had long been attached to his junior sister. Nianbing's appearance had greatly increased the sense of crisis in his heart. Nianbing's age was about the same as Long Ling's, and his appearance was much more handsome than his own. In addition to his impressive magical abilities, other than his background, he was not inferior to him in any other aspect. His junior sister was so beautiful. If he were to enter the guild, he was afraid that it would not be easy for him to woo his junior sister. It seemed that he had to think of a way to deal with this. After leaving the Magicians' Guild, Nianbing was in a good mood. He knew that the evaluation of a sorcerer was definitely not wrong. He did not expect that he had actually unintentionally reached the level of a great magician. Moreover, he possessed two types of magic at the same time. If he were to cast two Tier 4 spells, he would be much more powerful than an ordinary great magician. Although he was excited, he would definitely not be arrogant. Although there was only one level of difference between a great magician and a sorcerer, this one level was an extremely difficult gap to cross. Nian Bing remembered very clearly that his father had once said that he had reached the level of a great magician when he was 24 years old. However, he had always been practicing diligently until he was 35 years old, when he entered the realm of a sorcerer with the help of the divine stone of fire. That was already quite fast. Even the youngest sorcerer on the continent was not that fast. From a great magician to a sorcerer, unless one had extremely good luck, it would be very difficult to advance to that high level of a magician without dozens of years of hard work. A great magician and a sorcerer could also be said to be a gap within a magician. Once crossed, one could enter the forest of powerful magicians and no longer need to fear warriors of the same level. The most powerful great magician could only cast Tier 5 large-scale spells, while the most powerful sorcerer could cast Tier 8 spells. From Tier 5 to Tier 8, that was a qualitative improvement. Nian Bing was not in a hurry to return to the cool breeze cell. He bought a black full-length robe and a skull mask that a child played with. As he walked, a faint cold light shone in his eyes. When he was about to return to the cool breeze cell, he walked to a dark corner and put on the black robe. He reached into his robe and held the divine stone of fire in his right hand. He stood in a corner and looked in the direction of the cool breeze cell and the entrance of the great accomplishment pavilion from afar. This was the best time for the restaurant to have guests. There was an endless stream of customers at the entrance of the great accomplishment pavilion. Although there were fewer people at the cool breeze restaurant, it was obvious that they were either elegant people or ordinary magicians. Nian Bing stood there without moving. He was very patient and could wait. His gaze was always on the entrance of the great accomplishment pavilion, waiting for the person he was waiting for. The ice and fire energy in his body circulated naturally, constantly replenishing the ice element that he had consumed. His left hand reached into his robe and grasped the hilt of the morning dew dagger. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will kill them. At this moment, his heart was filled with murderous intent. Finally, after waiting for more than an hour, the target finally appeared. Shopkeeper Liao San, whom Xue Jing called a mangy dog, walked out of the door. He was still holding his large iron fan. With a wave of his hand, the fan opened up and gently patted his chest, causing the night breeze to blow into his face. When the girls at the door saw him come out, they immediately stood up straight and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Liao San walked in front of a girl and suddenly raised his hand to pinch her pink face. He scolded, "Are you a fucking zombie? Who would come if you keep welcoming guests like this? Smile, do you hear me?" The girl's body trembled. She hurriedly said, Yes, third shopkeeper, I know I was wrong." Liao San laughed lecherously. "It's good that you know you were wrong. After work tonight, come to my room and I'll teach you a lesson. You'll know what to do in the future." The girl's eyes flashed with a terrifying light. "No, third shopkeeper, I know I was wrong. Please spare me." Her knees went soft and she almost knelt on the ground. Liao San grabbed her by the collar and angrily said, "Damn it, you're courting death. Serving me is a blessing you've cultivated for several lifetimes. Since you don't want to, then die for me." He waved the fan in his hand and was about to hit the girl in front of him. Liao San waved his fan but suddenly felt his hand tighten. "Fuck, who dares to stop me?" While cursing, he turned around and saw a middle-aged man holding the fan appear behind him. This man had a clean face and a handsome face, but his eyes were filled with a sinister aura. Seeing this person's appearance, Liao San immediately softened and quickly said with an apologetic smile, second brother, so it looks like you. This little girl didn't even give me face. I was just about to teach her a lesson. The middle-aged man snorted. I think the one who should be taught a lesson is you. When will you change your bad temper? Rabbits don't eat grass near their burrows. If you want to play with women, go find them in the brothels. If you continue to cause trouble in the pavilion, I'll tell Big Brother and have him put you in solitary confinement. Don't you know that the boss hates people who affect his business? We 3 brothers may be shopkeepers, but if you anger the boss, no one can protect you. Also, Big Brother told me to warn you not to provoke that shoe-edging girl from Clear Wind Pavilion. Clear Wind Pavilion has the backing of the Magicians' Union. Even the boss doesn't dare to touch them, let alone you. If one day you anger them, and they find a high-level magician to kill you, you'll die in vain. Liao San was dissatisfied with the middle-aged man's reprimand, but he didn't dare to say anything. Second brother, there aren't many things happening in the pavilion today. I'll go out for a walk. I'll be more careful in the future. The middle-aged man nodded. Go. Don't be too ostentatious. Come back early and I'll put in a good word for you to Big Brother. Liao San chuckled, the fat on his face piled up. It was uglier than crying. Then I'll go. If it's a brothel, then so be it. With that, he continued to pat his fat chest with the large fan in his hand and walked down the street to the south. When Liao San moved, Nian Bing, who had been waiting for him, also moved. She held the morning dew dagger in her hand and followed Liao San like an ordinary passerby. The moment Nian Bing left with Liao San, the head shopkeeper she had seen in the morning hurried out of Great Accomplishment Pavilion. The second shopkeeper was at the door greeting guests. When he saw him, he hurriedly asked, Big Brother, why are you in such a hurry? Did something happen in the pavilion? The fat on the head shopkeeper's face trembled. He shook his head and said, Nothing happened in the pavilion. However, the boss just told me that an extremely distinguished guest will be coming to our place tomorrow. He told me to suspend the business tomorrow. After the guest leaves tonight, you and Liao San have to keep an eye on the servants and make sure they clean up the place. You can't be careless. The second shopkeeper was stunned. Big Brother, what kind of guest could be so distinguished? The last time Prince Dongming came here, the boss didn't close the business. Our business is big. If we close the business for a day, our income will decrease a lot. The shopkeeper impatiently said, All right, don't ask any more. You'll know who came tomorrow. Do as I say. Don't be careless. Where's Liao San? The second shopkeeper hesitated. Liao San, he saw that there was nothing wrong in the pavilion and said he wanted to go out for a walk. I let him go. The head shopkeeper snorted. He must have gone to the brothel again. I don't know when he'll change his bad habit. Go and drag him back here. If we don't receive the distinguished guest tomorrow, none of us will have a good time. The second shopkeeper nodded and hurriedly chased in the direction the third shopkeeper left. As Liao San walked, he hummed a tune with 4 notes out of 5. He was thinking about which brothel he should go to find a girl today. After being taught a lesson by Shui Jing this morning, he was full of anger. How could he feel comfortable without finding a place to vent? After turning a corner, he entered a narrow alley. He was very familiar with the layout of this area. As long as he passed through here, he would find the best brothel. Stop. You've reached the end. A cold voice came from behind. Liao San felt the hair on his neck stand up. He quickly turned around and blocked his face with his fan. What he saw was a man in black. Under the moonlight, he could see that the man was very tall, with broad shoulders and a broad back. He wore a white skull mask on his head. Liao San was startled when he saw the man. Damn it! Which bastard is pretending to be mysterious? I'll chop you to death. Chop me to death? I think you'll be the one to die first. The man in black raised his right hand. A fiery red light suddenly lit up. A fireball appeared in his palm. The fireball grew bigger and bigger. In just a few blinks of an eye, it became the size of a human head. The skull mask on the man's face looked even more strange under the fiery red light. Liao San stepped back in shock. He tried to act tough. "You're a magician. It's the people of the Breeze sect who asked you to deal with me, isn't it?" The man in black coldly said, "No. It's the heavens who want to deal with you. You don't need to know who I am. Your life is coming to an end. Go to hell and ask." The fireball suddenly lit up. With a whooshing sound, the fireball rushed toward Liao San. Liao San was a man who had seen the world. His body lit up with a yellow light. He aimed at the fireball and waved his fan forward. Although magicians were respected, as long as they weren't super magicians, warriors wouldn't be at a disadvantage in a one-on-one fight. Therefore, Liao San wasn't afraid. He believed that with his fighting power, it would be easy to break the fireball. He would then chop the magician into pieces. Just as the fireball was about to be hit by Liao San's fan, it suddenly changed its direction and flew up, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. Liao San's fan, which was full of dou qi, suddenly hit the wall on the side. His dou qi was indeed powerful, and in the midst of the smoke, the wall on the side of the street was suddenly hit with a big hole. Liao San was furious. The moment he hit the wall, his fighting power poured out crazily. At this moment, his fighting power defense was at its weakest. The blue light was so beautiful. But at this moment it was like a ghost from hell. The light was so faint that it looked like a thread of blue light in the night. Before Liao San could withdraw his fan, the blue light had already pierced through his forehead and disappeared. Liao San's whole body froze and began to spasm violently. At this moment, the fireball that was flying up came from behind and hit Liao San's back. Liao San was turned into a burning man. But because his life was already ended by the blue light, he didn't even have time to scream. His tall and strong body fell to the ground. The dark alley was lit up by the fire. The man in black with the skull mask said in a hoarse voice, "Those who helped me, I will repay tenfold. Those who made me enemies, I will destroy them." He was Nianbing. He clearly remembered the humiliation this morning. When he left the Ice God Tower, he swore that as long as he was strong enough, he would never be humiliated again. Today was the first time he killed someone, but he didn't feel a trace of fear. It was as if Liao San's death had nothing to do with him, as if he was just crushing an ant. Because he killed Liao San, Nianbing felt an indescribable joy in his heart. The darkness in his heart was fully released. His body even emitted a trace of evil aura. Suddenly, a cold and sharp aura came from behind. Although it didn't reach him, Nianbing felt a faint pain in his back. Without any hesitation, his right hand pulled out the morning dew dagger. The blue light spread out behind him. At this moment, in his heart, everything was as light as firewood. With a soft sound, Nianbing groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood flowed down the edge of his mask. He staggered back a dozen steps before he could stand firm. The second shopkeeper of the Great Accomplishment Pavilion appeared in his previous position, holding a broken longsword in his hand. At this moment, he could clearly feel an icy chill flowing through the broken blade towards him. His entire body couldn't help but shiver. When the fireball was about to hit Liao San's head, the second manager was already behind Nianbing. However, it was too late for him to save Liao San. In order not to disturb Nianbing, he didn't make a sound. When the fireball exploded, he secretly activated his fighting aura, pulled out the flexible sword coiled around his waist, and stabbed Nianbing from behind. However, he would never have thought that his opponent, who was clearly a magician, would be able to turn around in time and even break the sword in his hand. Although that greenish-blue light flashed and disappeared, he could clearly feel that it was definitely a peerless blade. Slowly putting down his raised hand, the second manager emitted the same yellow light as Liao San and walked towards Nianbing step by step. The same fighting aura, but it was much stronger than Liao San's. As he walked, he stared at the skull mask on Nianbing's face and said coldly, "Who are you? Why did you try to kill my third brother? Tell me, did Clear Wind Sect send you here? Breeze Sect? Do you think they can order me around? Although she was in a passive situation, Nian Bing didn't panic. She stood firm and stared at the second manager through the hole in her mask. Not Breeze Sect? Then who are you? Why did you try to kill my third brother? You don't have to tell me, but I'll make you beg for death. The second manager's voice was even colder. Nian Bing calmly said, I'm an assassin. You can call me the demon killer. I've already killed today, so I don't want to do it again. See you next time. The red flame soared into the sky without any warning, and like a huge plane, it blasted towards the second shopkeeper. The second manager was very familiar with Liao San's ability. Although Liao San wasn't as strong as himself, his fighting aura wasn't much weaker. Just now, Liao San was killed in front of this mysterious person who called himself the demon killer. When he saw the flame wall coming towards him, he didn't dare to be careless. He quickly threw away the broken sword in his hand and gathered all his fighting aura to attack the flame wall. There was no sound, only sparks. The second manager's fighting aura kept echoing in the narrow alley. He was surprised to find that the flame wall didn't have the slightest power. However, when the sparks disappeared, the demon killer who was not far from him was gone. The fire on Liao San's body was still burning. A trace of fear rose in the second manager's heart. The mysterious demon killer was putting a lot of pressure on him. He was afraid that the demon killer was hiding in the dark and using his strange magic to attack him. Nian Bing staggered to a corner of the street and stopped. She gasped for breath and used an ordinary healing spell on herself. Only then did she feel a little better. The second manager's fighting aura didn't disperse. If the Morning Dew dagger hadn't broken his sword in time, Nian Bing would have been pierced through the heart. Even so, the fighting aura that entered her body when the sword was broken had shaken her internal organs. After all, he wasn't a warrior. As a magician, his weakest point was his body. The flame wall was a 5th-level spell. Nian Bing could use it, but it would take her a while to chant the spell. The spell he used to escape wasn't a real flame wall. Since he could condense a snowstorm, he could also use his strong mental strength to expand an ordinary 1st-level fireball to the size of a flame wall. Nian Bing didn't know that the meridians in his body had become much tougher than those of ordinary people under the constant training of the magic of ice and fire. That was why he was able to withstand the combat energy from the sword. If he had been an ordinary mage, he definitely wouldn't have been able to escape even if he didn't die. After panting for a while, the pain in his internal organs lessened a little. The healing technique was gradually taking effect. The Masha Envoy, this name that he had come up with on the spur of the moment, was deeply imprinted in his mind. He secretly swore that one day, the Masha Envoy would descend upon the transcendental ice god tower and bring death to those who had once harmed his parents. While thinking, he quickly took off his clothes and wrapped the mask in them. Then he slowly walked to the back door of the breeze shop. When Nian Bing returned to the breeze shop, it was already late at night. She carefully opened the back door and quietly walked to the woodshed. From the back door to the woodshed, she had to pass through the back garden. Uncle Lee had told her that the back garden was the exclusive place of the owner of the breeze shop. Without permission, no one was allowed to enter. The wall of the back garden was about 2 meters tall, and there were openings in the shape of plum blossoms on it. The green wall blended in with the surrounding environment, and with Nian Bing's height, he was able to see the situation inside through the openings in the shape of plum blossoms. He walked along the small path, and from the corner of his eye, he accidentally saw a red shadow flash past the openings in the shape of plum blossoms. Out of curiosity, he subconsciously moved closer to the openings to look at the back garden. It was a graceful figure, a graceful figure. A long sword that was shining with a red light was flying up and down, bringing with it a red light. The condensed dou qi emitted a strong fluctuation, blowing the surrounding flowers and trees, causing them to rustle. The person performing the sword was Xuejing. She seemed to like the color red very much. Although she had changed into a long dress, it was still the same flame-like color. Her body looked so vigorous, and her movements were as smooth as flowing water. Nian Bing was a little confused. It was so late. Why was she still practicing the sword here instead of going back to sleep? Forget it. Who cares? I'd better go back quickly and use a few more healing techniques on my body. I'll think about it after I've healed. Thinking of this, he quietly turned around. Just as he was about to leave, he accidentally stepped on the edge of a clump of flowers and plants, making a very soft sound. Who is it? Nian Bing thought to himself. He hurriedly threw the black robe and mask in his hands into the flowers and plants as fast as he could. Just as he finished this action, a red cloud jumped over the wall of the garden and floated in front of him. In the direction of the red light, Xuejing's long sword was already resting on Nian Bing's neck. The fighting aura flowing around her made him not dare to make the slightest move. Xuejing clearly remembered Nian Bing's handsome face. She frowned and said, "It's you. Didn't I ask you to go to the woodshed to help? It's so late. Why aren't you resting? What are you doing out here?" Nian Bing pretended to be in fear and trepidation and said, "Hello, Mississippi. I'm new here today. I wanted to go out to buy some daily necessities, but the things in Ice Snow City were too expensive, so I couldn't buy them. I just arrived here, and I'm not familiar with the roads. I went in the wrong direction, so I came back late. It's so late. Aren't you still awake?" Xuejing was obviously in a bad mood. She snorted and put the red sword back into the sheath. "It's good that it's like this. If I find out that you've done something bad to Qing Fengzhai, be careful of your head." I wouldn't dare. It's all thanks to Miss that I have food to eat. I will strictly abide by my duty. Miss, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first." He thought that he had passed. It seemed that he could only come back later to get the black robe and mask. After bowing slightly to Xuejing, he hurriedly walked in the direction of the woodshed. "Wait a minute," Xuejing suddenly called out to Nian Bing. Nian Bing's body stiffened. He thought to himself, could it be that she saw what I threw in the flowers? It can't be. It's so dark, and she's not a night owl. He turned around and said, "Miss, do you have any other orders?" Xuejing looked at Nian Bing from head to toe. Suddenly, in a flash, she appeared in front of Nian Bing without any preparation. She grabbed his clothes and jumped up. Nian Bing had felt the feeling of riding the clouds when he used Blizzard, but it was the first time that he was passively grabbed by someone. His right hand subconsciously touched the morning dew dagger, while his left hand prepared a magic spell. If Xuejing wanted to do something bad to him, he would be able to react at the fastest speed. Xuejing tapped lightly on the garden wall and floated into the garden with Nian Bing. Wrapped in red fighting energy, they arrived at the eaves of an octagonal pavilion in the garden after a few leaps. She put Nian Bing to the side and whispered, "Sit down and don't move." In fact, even if she didn't say anything, Nian Bing didn't dare to move. This pavilion was 4 to 5 meters high. If he fell, it would be terrible. He didn't understand why Xuejing brought him up, but he couldn't ask at this time. He could only carefully use healing spells on himself. If there were any changes, he would be better able to deal with it. Xuejing rested her elbows on her bent knees. Her beautiful eyes stared at the round moon in the sky, a blurred light flashing through them. Nian Bing could tell that she had something on her mind. One of them was preoccupied with his own thoughts, while the other was secretly healing his wounds. Neither of them made a sound. An hour passed, and Nian Bing could already feel that his internal organs were no longer as painful as before. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and quietly grabbed the divine stone of fire in his hand. Fire-type magic had always been the best choice for attacking. At this moment, he couldn't help but recall the scene of him insta-killing Liao San. He knew that with his strength, even in a head-on confrontation, he could easily deal with Liao San. However, it definitely wasn't as easy as it was back then. Liao San actually had Duki, and he didn't look weak either. He should have the strength of a sword master. The reason why he was able to kill Liao San so easily was because he had cleverly used two types of magic: the Tier 3 bursting fireball as a guide, and the Frost Star Needle, which he had researched using Ice Blade as a foundation and the culinary arts fine needle piercing rice. That was how he was able to kill Liao San in one fell swoop. Although the Ice Blade technique was only a rank 2 ice magic, when it was compressed into the shape of a needle, its power was not to be underestimated. As long as the opponent's Duki wasn't too strong, it could be used to penetrate the opponent's defense. Why aren't you saying anything? Nianbing was just thinking about the mysteries of magic when Xue Jing's voice suddenly rang in his ears. He jumped in fright and instinctively dodged to the side. His foot slipped, and he immediately slid down the pavilion with a cry of surprise. In the situation where he lost his balance, Nianbing couldn't help but grab at Xue Jing's skirt. Nianbing was startled by Xue Jing, and his sudden slide also startled Xue Jing. She only felt her body become heavy, and under the pull, she fell down the pavilion with Nianbing. The two fell down the pavilion at the same time. Xue Jing, after all, had practiced martial arts since she was a child, so her reaction was very fast. She flipped her body in the air and grabbed Nianbing's waist with one hand, while her other hand slapped downwards, using the recoil of Duki to send herself and Nianbing back to the pavilion. Silence, absolute silence. Nianbing and Xue Jing looked at each other, and the two maintained a strange posture. Xue Jing had her arms around Nianbing's waist, while Nianbing had one hand around Xue Jing's neck and the other hand holding onto her skirt. Half of Xue Jing's snow-white thigh was exposed to the air because of her skirt. Nianbing's hand that was holding onto her neck kept feeling the smoothness of her thigh. His heartbeat sped up, and for a moment, his mind was blank. He, who had always been quick-witted, was at a loss. Bastard! Xue Jing suddenly let go of her hand and slapped Nianbing's face, which almost made him fall down the pavilion again. Xue Jing hooked her foot and pulled Nianbing to her side. She slapped away his hand that was holding onto her skirt and looked at him angrily. Nianbing was stunned by Xue Jing's slap. He covered his face with his hand, not knowing what to do. Xue Jing's eyes gradually changed. A thin layer of mist gradually thickened, and tears swirled around her eyes. Suddenly, as if she had been wronged, she burst into tears, and tears kept falling down her face. "Miss, I didn't do it on purpose." Nianbing tried to sound her out. A beautiful woman was crying in front of him. He really didn't know what to do now. Xue Jing suddenly raised her head and looked at Nianbing angrily. "I told you not to move." "Who told you to move?" Nianbing smiled bitterly and said, "I was scared by you. Do you think I wanted to move?" At this time, the previous erotic scene was still replaying in front of his eyes. He had already forgotten his own identity. Xue Jing stared at Nianbing with her big eyes. "Isn't that your fault? Who told you to not speak for an hour?" Nianbing said in surprise. "Didn't you tell me to sit and not move? You were the one who caught me." Xue Jing knew that she was in the wrong. She wiped the tears on her face with her sleeve and snorted. "Everyone else is a hero saving a beauty. Today, I came here to save a good-for-nothing. You've grown such a big body for nothing." Nianbing smiled bitterly. If she was a good-for-nothing, then so be it. He couldn't tell Xue Jing that he was actually a magician. He still hadn't seen the culinary skills of the Breeze restaurant. Everything still needed time. Touching his face, he found that the left side of his face had already swollen into a palm-shaped mark. He only knew the lowest level of healing magic. Even if he used it every day, he probably wouldn't be able to see anyone for at least 3 days. The first time he killed someone, he was almost killed. When he finally ran back, he was inexplicably slapped. When he was unlucky, even cold water would be stuck in his teeth. Xue Jing returned to her previous posture. Her expression gradually calmed down. "Looking at the moon in the sky," she said, Where are you from? Me? Nian Bing said, I'm from the Huarong Empire. This was the first time he had mentioned his hometown. Even when he was learning how to cook, Cha Ji had never asked him this question. Huarong Empire? That's the Huarong Empire called the Fire Empire. It's also the country furthest from our Ice Moon Empire. Why did you come all the way here? Nian Bing sighed softly. Who would be willing to leave their home? Isn't it all because fate forced me to? When I was 10 years old, I came to the Ice Moon Empire with my father. Now I'm the only one left. Xuejing turned to look at Nian Bing. It looks like you're also sad? Chapter 13. Nian Bing's heart shook, and he immediately woke up from his memories. He secretly scolded himself. Why did his vigilance become so low? It seemed that the power of a beautiful woman was not small. Miss, why do you use two? Xuejing glared at him and said, Didn't you call me you for a long time just now? Why are you calling me Miss now? Nian Bing helplessly said, I lost my composure just now. I should have called you Miss. Xuejing impatiently waved her hand and said, Forget it, I'm very annoyed today. I just want to find someone to chat with. Don't call me Miss, just call me Xuejing. I originally wanted to have a good chat with Ling Er, but she doesn't understand that aspect. Instead, it made me even more confused. Oh right, what's your name again? My name is Nian Bing. Then tell me, what kind of woman is most liked by men? After Xuejing gathered her courage to ask this question, her beautiful face immediately flushed red. Nian Bing secretly thought that this Qing Feng Zhai's young miss was probably in love. Miss, oh no, Xuejing, I'm not too sure about this. However, a girl as beautiful as Miss would definitely be liked by all men. When Xuejing heard this, her beautiful eyes once again filled with tears. You're talking nonsense, then why doesn't he like me? All day long, he puts on a cool appearance, and when people talk to him, he ignores them. She was not the person involved, how would she know the situation? Nian Bing bitterly smiled and said, Miss, I'm afraid you'll have to ask him about this. Perhaps, although he doesn't say it, he likes you in his heart? Xuejing forcefully shook off the tears in her eyes and said with some surprise, Is what you said true? Nian Bing hesitated and said, It should be. Since you like him, just get closer. Where there's a will, there's a way. Xuejing hit Nian Bing and said, But I'm a girl. How can a girl take the initiative in this kind of thing? Nian Bing, you just said that a beautiful girl like me would definitely be liked by all men. Then, do you like someone like me? Cough cough. Nian Bing almost choked to death on her own saliva. Miss, don't joke around. Our identities are different. Xuejing insisted, I don't care. Let's not look at status now. If we were friends, would you like me? From the bottom of Nian Bing's heart, he preferred girls with gentle temperaments like Long Ling or Feng Nu. Xuejing. This kind of shrewish beauty was not very attractive to him. But at this time, looking at the tears in Xuejing's eyes, he really could not bear to say no, so he nodded gently and said awkwardly, Yes. Humph, you seem to be forcing yourself. However, you must remember what you said today. If I ask you to do anything in the future, you must not refuse. Do you hear me? Nian Bing agreed with a wry smile. At this time, what else could he do if he did not agree? Xuejing turned around and faced Mingyu again. She murmured, He's really handsome. However, in terms of appearance, he doesn't seem to be as beautiful as you. But, he's already a great swordsman close to a martial fighter. The way he holds the sword is very beautiful. That feeling of power, even if you flatter a horse, you can't compare. I like people with heroic spirit like him the most. No, I must find a chance to test his feelings. Otherwise, I won't be satisfied no matter what. That night, Nian Bing sat in the pavilion with Xuejing until dawn. Only then did Xuejing take him out of the garden and let him leave. It was fine not to sleep for a night, but this was the first time in many years that Nian Bing did not meditate at night. When he returned to his room, he did not sleep. He desperately used healing magic on himself, hoping to remove the palm print on his face so that he could go to the Magician's Guild to read the magic incantation. However, things did not go as he wished. The effect of his primary healing magic was limited. Although the palm print was lighter, it was still there. In desperation, Nian Bing quietly went out before dawn. He found a pharmacy that was open around the clock and bought some white gauze. He folded it into a thick pile and stuck it on his left face with tape. Although it was not good looking, it was much better than having a red palm print on his face. Uncle Lee walked out of his room with a yawn. He breathed in the fresh air and stretched his body. He turned his head to look at the door on the other side and said to himself, I wonder if Nian Bing came back last night. Young people are always so playful. Uncle Lee, I did come back a little late last night. I'm sorry. Nian Bing pushed the door open. He had just come back and put away the black robe and mask. He did not even have time to sit down. Uncle Lee looked at the gauze on his face and could not help but ask in surprise, What happened to you? Are you hurt? Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, I was walking on the road yesterday and accidentally tripped over something. As a result, I broke my face. I had to put some medicine on it. The doctor said it would take 3 or 4 days to recover. Uncle Lee laughed and said, You are really stupid. It would be bad if you leave a scar on your face. Be careful in the future. Let's go and have breakfast. Nian Bing was indeed hungry. The last meal was at Feng Nu's at noon yesterday. Under Uncle Lee's lead, the two walked in the direction of the kitchen. In the distance, they could see 2 rows of long wooden tables in front of the kitchen door. There were about 30 to 40 people in white chef uniforms sitting there eating and drinking. Nian Bing said, The people in the kitchen wake up so early. Uncle Lee said, Of course they wake up early. Every morning is the busiest. They have to prepare the materials needed for the day. The materials used by our Cool Breeze Fasten are all of the best quality. There are 3 to 4 people in charge of selecting the materials. Let's go and see what we are eating today. Breakfast was steamed buns and porridge. Most of the chefs knew Uncle Lee. Under Uncle Lee's introduction, Nian Bing greeted them one by one. When Uncle Lee brought him to the last wooden table, Nian Bing found that there was only one person eating at this table. The other chefs consciously went to other tables and ate by themselves. Nian Bing, this is the head chef of our Cool Breeze Fasten. He is known as the King of Cooks, Ming Yuan, Master Ming. Hurry up and meet him. Head chef, his name is Nian Bing. He is new to help me. He is quite diligent. I will have to trouble you to take care of him in the future. Uncle Lee introduced Nian Bing eagerly. Ming Yuan had a medium build. He was neither fat nor thin. When he heard Uncle Lee's introduction, he raised his head to look at Nian Bing. He was about 40 years old. Although his appearance was ordinary, his eyes gave Nian Bing a sense of familiarity. He had seen the same gaze in Cha Ji's eyes. However, compared to Cha Ji, he was much worse. Cha Ji had once told Nian Bing that a capable chef's gaze was different from that of an ordinary chef. This was because he focused on cooking all year round. He told Nian Bing that although Nian Bing had learned all of his cooking skills, there was still a gap in terms of heat control and perception needed the support of perception. Ming Yuan's expression was very cold. Nian Bing nodded slightly and continued to eat his breakfast. Uncle Lee led Nian Bing to a table nearby. The two of them also began to eat. The steamed buns were filled with meat, but the taste was very different. However, when one was hungry, as long as there was something to fill one's stomach, it was enough. Just as Nian Bing was full and was about to go back to work with Uncle Lee, the person he didn't want to see appeared again. That fiery red figure slowly walked over. Uncle Ming, what did you eat for breakfast? Do you have a share for me? The appearance of Xuejing made all the kitchen staff stop what they were doing and stand up to salute her. Only Ming Yuan remained in his seat. He looked at Xuejing with some affection and said, You little girl, didn't you already send your breakfast over? Why did you come here to ask for it? Do you need something from me? At this moment, A faint smile appeared on his cold face. Xuejing didn't sleep the whole night, but her spirit didn't show any signs of fatigue. Can I look for you if I don't need anything? Can't your niece miss you? Ming Yuan laughed and said, Miss me? I think you're missing the snacks I made, right? Tell me, do you want to eat nest, candy rolls, or golden incense rings today? Uncle has nothing to do in the morning, so I'll make them for you when I'm free. Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat when he heard the terms nest, candy rolls, and golden incense rings. He had heard of 2 of the 3 pastries before. Candy rolls and golden incense rings were famous snacks, but there were very few people who could control the heat and make them well. But what was nest? Since Ming Yuan was called the king of wonderful cooks, he must be good at clever cooking method. If there was a chance, she must ask this nest's cooking method. Xuejing thought for a moment and said, Uncle Ming, then I want to eat golden incense rings. You also know that people love to eat this. Why don't you teach me how to make it? Ming Yuan pretended to be frightened and said, You? Forget it. Unless your father agrees to burn down the kitchen of the Cool Breeze restaurant, I'll teach you. Otherwise, Uncle still wants to live for a few more years and give you a few more tasty meals. But, little girl, even though golden incense rings are crispy and fragrant, they're still too oily. It's not very good for the skin. Xuejing giggled and said, I don't eat it every day. It's fine to eat it once in a while. Ming Yuan stood up and said, All right then, come with me. Uncle will make it for you now. Anyway, the ingredients are ready-made. Xuejing smiled and whispered a few words into Ming Yuan's ear. After hearing that, Ming Yuan frowned and his gaze fell on Nian Bing, who was not far away. He thought for a moment and said, Little girl, you only know how to make trouble for me. But, I'll say this, I'll only make it once. How much he can learn is his own problem. Xuejing said happily, I knew Uncle is the best. Ming Yuan said unhappily, Don't be the one who's been bewitched by that pretty boy. You little girl. I really can't help it. After saying that, he walked towards the kitchen. Nian Bing noticed that when Ming Yuan left, he glanced at her. His gaze seemed to contain a warning. Could it be that what Xuejing whispered in his ear just now had something to do with her? Just as she was thinking, she suddenly heard Xuejing call out, Nian Bing, come over here and help Uncle Ming. When she said that, all the chef's eyes fell on Nian Bing. All kinds of strange expressions appeared one after another. Needless to say, many of them had already misunderstood. One had to know that the wonderful chef Wang Ming Yuan had always been famous for keeping his dishes to himself. He never allowed others to watch him cook. Xuejing's call obviously meant that she wanted Nian Bing to learn how to make golden incense rings from him. Nian Bing stood up and pointed at her own nose. Miss, you called me? I'm just a firewood cutter. Xuejing glared at her and said angrily, I told you to come over, so come over. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up. Nian Bing was helpless. She could only walk to Xuejing's side and ask in a low voice, What are you doing? Xuejing smiled slightly and said, Consider it as repayment for the slap on your face. Let me tell you, I don't know how many people want to learn Uncle Ming's unique skills. This is a rare opportunity. You have to work hard. As long as you can learn a little, you'll have the capital to eat in the future. If you practice well, I'll ask Uncle Ming to transfer you from the woodshed to the kitchen. Nian Bing looked at Xuejing with a strange gaze. This girl with a fierce temper seemed to have her cute side. Xuejing's charming face blushed slightly. She pushed Nian Bing, Hurry up and go. Don't get the wrong idea. Last night, you accompanied me for half a day and got slapped by me. I'm just compensating you. What's more, I might need you to do me a favor in the future. As the two talked, they entered the kitchen. Qingfeng Fasting lived up to its reputation as a famous restaurant. Just this kitchen alone was over 1,000 square meters. Although it was very big and there were all kinds of ingredients, it was not messy at all. It was obvious that it had been carefully tidied up. All kinds of kitchen utensils were neatly arranged. Xuejing pulled Nian Bing to the innermost part of the kitchen. As they walked, she said, "Uncle Ming doesn't usually cook. Only important guests get to taste the dishes he personally makes. Of course, I'm an exception." The area where Ming Yuan cooked was covered by a curtain. Clearly, he did not want anyone to see his appearance while he cooked. Nian Bing shook her head inwardly. These famous chefs were all so stingy. How could they promote their culinary skills? Xuejing and Nian Bing lifted the curtain and entered Ming Yuan's personal cooking space, which was about 20 square meters in size. Ming Yuan glanced at them and said to Nian Bing coldly, "I'll only do it once. I'll be quick. You have to watch carefully. How much you can learn will depend on your luck." As soon as he finished speaking, his hands immediately began to move. Ming Yuan's left hand grabbed a clean and empty basin from the side. His right hand scooped up about a caddy of noodles into the basin with a ladle. At the same time, his left hand scooped up half a ladle of water from the other side and slowly poured it into the bowl of noodles. His two hands were performing different actions, but there was not the slightest bit of confusion. Nian Bing knew that this was the famous technique of interplay in the culinary world. It allowed one to do two things at the same time, but at the same time, focus on what one was cooking. Ming Yuan's right hand took out some white powder from 3 white seasoning boxes and added it into the flour. He said calmly, "Warm water to dissolve salt, alkali, and a little bit of alum. This is the foundation." As soon as he finished speaking, the work in his hands was done. With a shake of his hands, the tools in his hands returned to their original positions. His two hands inserted into the basin at the same time and quickly stirred. In just a few blinks of an eye, the previously scattered flour and seasonings had now become a dough. Nian Bing was very clear in her heart that what was put in was secondary. The most important thing was the amount. The kneading technique was also very particular. One's wrist must be strong. Moreover, the kneading direction and order were different, so the finished product would be different. Although the cooking of the golden fragrance ring had just begun, Nian Bing had already seen many things. She nodded in her heart. An expert, as expected of an expert. It seemed that her trip to the Qingfeng restaurant was not in vain. Ming Yuan's hands moved faster and faster. The dough constantly changed into various shapes in his hand. Sometimes it was long and sometimes it was flat. There was no time for him to stop. If it were an ordinary chef, when making the golden fragrance ring, the dough would have to be kneaded for an hour and a half before continuing the process. The reason why Ming Yuan kept kneading the dough was that he wanted to save the process of kneading the dough. This required an extremely high level of skill and familiarity with the mixture of several seasonings to be able to do. With this point alone, Ming Yuan had already proved that he did not get the title of wonderful chef for nothing. Finally, after about a quarter of an hour of kneading, the dough was placed on the chopping board in an oval shape. Ming Yuan looked very calm, as if the 10 minutes of intense kneading did not affect him at all. He glanced at Nian Bing and said, "Look carefully. The next step is the key." As he spoke, he lit the stove with a flint, put a clean iron pot over the fire, and poured half of the oil into it. A thick rolling pin about 1.5 meters long was held in his hand. With just a few simple movements, the dough on the chopping board had been turned into flat pieces. After that, his movements were very fast. Obviously, Ming Yuan did not want Nian Bing to learn too much from him. A small knife specially used for making noodles was held in his hand. The knife flashed continuously, and the flat pieces had become uniform strips about 2 inches wide. He put the strips of dough on the chopping board. Ming Yuan pressed one end of the dough with one hand and held the other end of the dough with the other hand. He rolled the dough into flat pieces about 2 inches thick. With the knife, he cut the dough into 1.5-inch wide pieces. Every 2 pieces were stacked together, and he made a cut in the middle with the knife. Nian Bing saw very clearly that the 2 sides were not cut through. At this time, the oil was already 50% hot. Ming Yuan waved his right hand, and the half-finished golden incense rings slid lightly into the pot. A pair of chopsticks jumped into his left hand from who knows where. The chopsticks supported the center of the oiled dough, and suddenly a round ring, like a bracelet, continuously turned under the effect of the chopstick. His other hand was not idle, and one golden incense ring after another was put into the pot. Xuejing hurriedly took the plate, and the golden incense rings came out of the pot one after another. Suddenly, the fragrance overflowed, and people began to eat. When the 10th golden incense ring of the same size came out of the pot, Ming Yuan stopped. He covered the stove to extinguish the fire, and said to Xuejing, "Silence, try it. See if your Uncle Ming's craftsmanship has deteriorated." Xuejing giggled and said, "Uncle Ming's craftsmanship is the best. How can it deteriorate?" And Nian Bing, you. When the first golden incense ring came out of the pot, Nian Bing had already forgotten everything, and was completely immersed in Ming Yuan's skillful cooking. At this time, he was holding a pair of chopsticks, and picked up a golden incense ring to take a bite. He nodded approvingly and said to himself, "Fragrant, crisp, and crisp. It breaks with the slightest touch, as expected of good craftsmanship." Ming Yuan saw that Nian Bing had overstepped her boundaries and actually ate the golden incense ring first. Just as he was about to flare up, he heard Nian Bing continue, "The delicate hands are kneaded into jade, the green oil is fried to a tender yellow color, the night of spring sleep is light, and the beauty is wrapped in gold. Good, it is indeed a top-grade golden incense ring." Xuejing said unhappily, "Nian Bing, what are you doing? Who told you to eat my breakfast?" Nian Bing was startled, and only then did she come to her senses. She hurriedly stuffed the golden incense ring into her mouth, and put the chopsticks aside. She said vaguely, "I'm sorry, Mississippi. The chef's craftsmanship is really too exquisite, so I—" As she spoke, she hurriedly swallowed the golden incense ring into her stomach, and her expression became a little more awkward. Ming Yuan looked at Nian Bing in shock and said in a low voice, "Who are you? How do you know the formula to make the golden incense ring?" Nian Bing was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "I only heard it from a person who set up a stall on the side of the road. I felt that it was very appropriate for the golden incense ring, so I memorized it. I've embarrassed myself in front of you." Ming Yuan snorted, "Why don't you look at who you're speaking to when you're lying? If everyone knew the formula to make the golden incense ring, I wouldn't be able to survive." Xuejing looked at Nian Bing in shock, and just as she was about to say something, she heard hurried footsteps outside. "Miss Chef, not good, something has happened." Xuejing lifted the curtain and saw a servant from the Breeze restaurant running over in a hurry, sweating profusely. She couldn't help but frown and ask, "Why are you in such a hurry? What happened? Tell me slowly." The servant panted and said, "Miss, the news just came. I don't know why, but the city lord suddenly closed all 4 gates of Ice Snow City, and no one is allowed to enter or leave. Also, Decheng Pavilion suddenly closed for business today. I also heard that their 3rd shopkeeper suddenly died last night." "Died? The mangy dog Liao San died? What is going on?" Nian Bing walked out with Ming Yuan at this time. Ming Yuan said calmly, "Silence, don't worry. Let's go find your father and see if he knows about the situation." Xuejing nodded eagerly and walked out with Ming Yuan. Before Ming Yuan left, he turned his head and looked at Nian Bing. "I'll find you later. You should go back to the woodshed first." Nian Bing heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, "I was planning to stay here for a while longer. It seems like I can't hide my culinary skills anymore. It's a pity that I don't know what special skills the chefs at Decheng Pavilion have. Forget it. If she couldn't hide it, she would go to Feng Nu's place. After the Xingyang saber was embedded, she would quietly leave Ice Snow City." Ice Snow City was closed today, and Decheng Pavilion was closed for business. Why? Liao San's death shouldn't be enough to close the city. Decheng Pavilion. The dazzling hall seemed a little dignified today. The entire hall was clean and tidy. There were dozens of tables, but only one table in the center was occupied. There were more than 10 people in total, but only one person was sitting. The rest were standing respectfully behind him. It was a woman with long white hair. She sat there like a statue carved out of ice jade. Her white robe with golden edges set off her cold and noble temperament. Her beautiful face made it impossible for anyone to have the slightest blasphemy towards her. Her body seemed to be surrounded by a layer of frost. Her eyes were closed, and her entire body was so cold that no one could approach her. Among the dozen or so people standing behind the woman, except for a magician wearing a green magician's robe, everyone else seemed to be trembling with fear. The magician's green robe had a golden hexagram pattern on the chest, and in the center of the hexagram was embroidered a rising vortex. It looked extremely luxurious. "Why isn't the president of the martial arts guild here?" The woman in white finally spoke. The hall seemed to have become colder. A middle-aged man in a luxurious robe quickly stepped forward and respectfully said, reporting to the goddess priestess, "The president of the martial arts guild is out on business. He rarely stays in Ice Snow City, so he is not here." The person sitting in the hall of Ducheng Pavilion was the only goddess priestess on the continent who had the title of God's Summoner. She was the symbol of the Ice Moon Empire and the strongest person in the magic world. Only she could close the second largest city of the Ice Moon Empire with a single sentence. The goddess priestess said faintly, "You are all leaders in Ice Snow City. I will give you 3 days to investigate every corner of Ice Snow City and find the stone of Ice Snow Goddess. If the person who has it is very powerful, as long as you force him to use the magic power of the God Stone, I will personally take care of everything." The middle-aged man who spoke before said with some difficulty, "Goddess priestess, you also know that Ice Snow City is very big. Isn't 3 days a little too short?" The goddess priestess slowly opened her eyes. A cold blue light shot out and shone on the middle-aged man. He suddenly quivered and wanted to take a few steps back to stabilize himself. "Marquis Noah, if you feel that the position of the Lord of Ice Snow City is not suitable for you, I can help you adjust it at any time." When Marquis Noah heard this, his face suddenly changed. He hurriedly said, "No, goddess priestess, I didn't mean that. How can we dare to disobey your orders? However, without any clues, I can't guarantee that I will be able to find it." The goddess priestess coldly snorted and said, "Last night, on the way here, I clearly felt the energy of the stone of Ice Snow Goddess. It must be in Ice Snow City. If this matter is not done well, I will hold you responsible first." Marquis Noah had a bitter look on his face. Looking for a stone in such a big city was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, they only had 3 days. If the city was sealed for 3 days, it would certainly have a great impact on Ice Snow City. There would be problems with the operation of the entire city. But at this time, he had no other choice. It was useless to reason with the goddess priestess. He helplessly nodded and said, "I will do my best." "Goddess priestess, there is something I don't know if I should say." A humble voice came from behind. The one who spoke was the second shopkeeper of Ducheng Pavilion. He and the head shopkeeper had been standing at the back. When he suddenly spoke, it immediately attracted the attention of the people in front of him. One of them, an old man wearing a golden robe, said in a deep voice, "Impudent! You have no right to speak in front of the goddess priestess." The second shopkeeper's eyes revealed a look of fear. He hurriedly said, "Yes, owner. No matter. If it is related to the stone of Ice Snow Goddess, let him speak." The gaze of the goddess priestess fell on the second shopkeeper. The second shopkeeper only felt his whole body turn cold. It was as if he was naked in front of everyone, without any secret. Yes, goddess priestess, it is like this. Last night, my third brother, who is also the third shopkeeper of Ducheng Pavilion, was suddenly killed. The person who killed him was a magician. What kind of magic did he die under? The words of the goddess priestess were very concise. The second shopkeeper was stunned for a moment. He said, I don't know much about magic. It seems to be a big fireball. The boss of Deshang Pavilion said angrily, Is there something wrong with your head? Didn't the goddess priestess just say that it has to be related to the stone of ice snow goddess? Get out, don't waste the goddess priestess time. The second shopkeeper hurriedly said, No, boss, let me finish. Although my third brother died under the fireball, it is very strange. When the fireball bombarded his body, his whole body fell into a sea of fire and was burned black. But his head was not black. Instead, it was covered with a layer of frost. It is still there now. Perhaps. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the goddess priestess. She said coldly, Bring the body up for me to see. Yes, goddess priestess. The shopkeeper of Deshang Pavilion hurriedly complied. After a while, Liao San's body was brought up. Under the burning of the fireball, the body had long been burned into a charred state. A foul smell assailed the nostrils, causing everyone present to cover their noses. A layer of faint white light enveloped the body of the goddess priestess. Without looking at her posture, her slender body was already in front of the body. Like spring onions, her jade-like hands reached out from her robe and pressed down. Her mental power instantly enveloped the charred body through the ice element. Others may not have felt anything, but as the president of the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Union, Wind Archmage Long Ji was greatly surprised. Although with his position, this was not the first time he had seen the goddess priestess, a god-sent master and the state teacher of the Ice Moon Empire, use magic for the first time. But seeing her so easily use spiritual detection magic without chanting an incantation, as expected of the number one magician of the continent, the goddess priestess slowly raised her head, a cold light flashing in her eyes. Her gaze fell on the second shopkeeper. Tell me in detail what happened last night. The second shopkeeper agreed and hurriedly described the situation last night in detail in fear and trepidation. He did not dare to omit anything. Under the invisible pressure of the goddess priestess, he did not even dare to conceal the fact that Liao San went to visit a prostitute. When he said that the black-clothed man called himself the demon killer, the faces of everyone present could not help but turn ugly. On the continent of Yangon, the most hated profession was not prostitutes, nor was it thieves or robbers. It was assassins. Especially for magicians who were not good at close combat, they hated assassins the most. This was because even a high-level magician would have a hard time surviving an assassin's sneak attack if they were unprepared. However, this was the first time they had heard of the existence of a magician among assassins. Moreover, it was obvious that this magician was not ordinary.